Hello, everyone, and this is Andres Restart. I am joined by some good friends and content creators to talk about Nintendo as we typically do every Tuesday night. I'll just go from how I see it here. Bo, how's it going?
It's going good. Excited to be back. Lots to talk about. Lots going on in the past 2 days.
For real, it's been crazy. And we also have Josie returning after a little bit as well. How you doing?
Good to be back. Happy to talk about all the craziness over the past couple days.
It truly has been hectic. I've said that repeatedly in so many different ways, and I am not exaggerating. So it's going to be fun. And of course, Brandon, my friend, my co-host, is here as well. How you doing, buddy?
Yes, I'm doing very well. I ordered myself a sit-stand desk, which arrived a day earlier than they said it would, which is very nice. So I haven't had a desk since I moved to my new place, because every place I moved, they just had a desk for some reason. Not this place, so I had to order one. And yeah, I'm gonna get my PC set up and be ready to go for these directs.
Yeah, I mean it's wild, right? Like I wasn't even sure if I did the right title today because I call the Alliance live stream "What in the World is Nintendo Thinking with the Switch 2 Direct," but it might not just be a Switch 2 Direct, and so that kind of complicates things. And there's so much. Like I'm excited, but I'm also like maybe not excited because there's a rumor going around that I really, 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 really don't like. And that's that Metroid Prime 4 might not be in the Switch 2 Direct. But of course, it is one rumor out of many rumors. So do we believe it? Do we not believe it? I don't know. But we're going to get into that. So much more. Is there going to be a normal Switch 1 Direct this Thursday, as reported by now a lot of different people? How will this relate to the Switch 2 Direct? We're going to be talking about that stuff. What is going on with Metroid Prime 4? What might we see in the Direct? And so much more. That is the general plan for the evening. But if everyone in the chat could let me know how everything is looking and sounding, because if for whatever reason I'm muted and no one has said anything, it would, it would be nice to know. Or if I need to balance the audio levels at all or anything, I would appreciate that. And by the way, Bo and Josie, it's been a little while since they've been on the stream. Please make sure to check out their channels. They are both linked in the description below. They are both amazing. I watch them both. I enjoy them both. And I imagine if you guys watch me, you would enjoy them too. So, yeah. Checking in the chat, it looks like everything looks and sounds great. I appreciate that. I see here we have a new member.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yo.
Marquesiv. Did I pronounce it correctly? Hopefully I did. Thank you and welcome. Glad to have you on board. So scrolling through, I see here Connor added me. Hi. Okay. So if there's if there's a Nintendo Direct happening this week, then I hope we do get a double pack of both Triple Deluxe and Planet Robot instead of a HD remake of Planet Robot. Connor, you're always here to remind us that you want that double pack, and I will tell you, I was watching actually Game.
They're not the only ones in the chat.
No,
There's
no,
always somebody.
It was funny because I was listening to Andre Seegers from Game Explain today. He was talking about his Direct predictions, and I think he forgot which Kirby game was rumored, but he's like, "Oh, we should just get a double pack, including Triple Deluxe." So I don't know. Maybe Connor is actually Andre Seegers from Game Explain, but you guys are of the same opinion, so that is awesome.
I hope you're right, Connor. I want Triple Deluxe to not get forgotten. I want both.
Yeah, that would be cool. I don't know if they're going to do that, but that'd be really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, the rumor is just Planet Robobot, so I guess that's all we're getting.
Yeah. I mean, I just assumed it's going to be like Return to Dreamland Deluxe, which I think would actually be pretty cool because, one, we would have that game, which I'd actually play Robobot on 3DS, so I'd be happy to get just that. But with Return to Dreamland Deluxe, there was a whole new epilogue quest, right? So there's going to be, if they follow the same sort of, pattern, I would assume there's going to be some new content in there. So I don't know. For me, that would be even more exciting. But
yeah,
we'll see what
Magalore's
happens.
epilogue was like the best part of that game.
Yeah,
It was really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it.
They could do a Susie's like prologue or something for Planet Robobot.
They should do a
Something
beat 'em
like
up
that.
style again because that was just like the way they made that gameplay was so fun.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
We're seeing it
All right.
Thursday.
Maybe.
I mean, if it exists, probably.
Yeah. Nate Esquega, been a member for 38 months. Appreciate you, Andres. I appreciate you, Nate. So thank you. But let's dive into something. So I started things off talking about the Metroid thing, but obviously we got the whole Direct thing. What do you guys want to dive into first?
Ooh.
I guess the Direct. I know you're probably more interested in the Metroid Prime thing, or maybe not interested if it is real, because it is negative. But
Yeah.
I feel like this Direct, so many comments on my videos from the past couple days. Well, at first people didn't believe it, obviously. Who would, I guess. But now people
Right.
are like angry it's happening. I'm seeing so many comments being like, this is bad news. And I'm like, dude, it's just, now we get 2 cakes if this is real. And we get to have 2 Directs. And that's a
Right.
good thing in my opinion.
So I mean, I guess the first question to ask is like, do we believe that there is going to be a Switch 1 Direct on Thursday?
I believe anything Nathaniel says. He's a
Nathaniel
homie.
the hate. Yeah.
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 always
Yeah,
gets
you
it
gotta
right.
trust him.
He doesn't say things he doesn't mean. So I just feel like it might not be what everybody's expecting, though, because he did say, like, he doesn't know the format it's going to take. So could we be talking about a partner showcase hypothetically? Like, maybe. I hope not, but maybe.
I just feel like we need more first-party Switch.
I totally
You know,
agree.
we don't have any clue when anything's coming out. Like we know about Legend Z through A and Prime 4 that they exist, right? They're coming to Switch 1. We have no idea when. And then we know basically nothing beyond that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we know
I mean,
Legends Z is coming out fall, whatever that means. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's pretty much it. It is actually, I mean, it is interesting because we right now, for the first time ever in the Switch era, we don't have a specific release date for any first party title. Like,
Yeah, it's really
that hasn't
weird.
happened yet. And I mean, we're at the end of the generation, so I mean, if it was ever going to be a time for it to happen, it would be now. But you would
True.
think that they're not quite done yet. So I agree. There's got to be some dates, right? And you know, I agree with you, Josie. Like, if Nate the Hate says it, specifically when it comes to like direct announcements and big Nintendo presentations, I would say Nate the Hate probably has the best track record out of them all.
Yeah.
So if there's something you want to trust him with, it's definitely this. And it's not just him, right? Like, we have Nin Spider from Family Board, someone who has leaked the dock proportions and the magnetic controllers. They were hinting at a direct in March. Andre Seegers, actually, from Game Explain, has also kind of, if you watch his video, he also suggested he has reason to believe the direct as well. There's this the Chinese leaker from Weibo who apparently like leaked several things from the June Direct has also apparently said this, right? And then you have other people that are maybe on lower levels of credibility, like Necro Felipe, Nash Weedle. A lot of our people are kind of like chiming in, saying different things. So it's just one of those things where like we kind of like every person who may know something is saying something, except for maybe Pioro, who's just talking about Pokemon Mega Evolutions, which apparently no one cares about except for like me and 2 other people. But you know, like there's a lot of people suggesting this. And what's funny, right? And I don't know if you guys have actually, Bill, I know you've noticed this, right? And Josie, Brandon, I don't know if you guys are aware, but like, you know, there was more than enough reason for me to make a rumor video on this because of the sourcing on it, right? And also because I do believe that there needs to be some first party announcement for Switch 1. But like looking at like the feedback from like just like, let's call it the vocal minority, or I'm not sure if it's a minority, but the vocal people in the comments, like a lot of people are like, oh, there's no way this makes any logical sense. This is garbage. This is ridiculous. This is BS. There's no way there could be a direct this week. But I mean, Nintendo's done stranger things, like not giving us any like at all, like sort of like timing on when they might reveal the Switch 2 reveal. And like, you know, given like they didn't tell us in advance about the Switch 2 first look trailer, and they just dropped it the same day Donkey Kong came out, which no one would have thought.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, that was
exactly
insane
what
of
they
them.
did. So yeah, I mean, I'll just say this. I think at this point it's safe. Like, I had also heard something's happening on Thursday a few days ago. I didn't want to like believe it, but then everyone else said it. I personally think that yes, something's happening. But like, as you also mentioned, Josie, it might not even be anything big, right? It might be like a partner or something.
Yeah, I feel like it's important to mention that because it could be that, but I also don't think that makes very much sense. Like they do, like you've been saying, they gotta outline it more. We don't know what's happening for the Switch 1, and the initial Switch is still like selling pretty well. Like not like amazingly, but for a console on its last legs, you know, like they're gonna want to support it and put out some games for it. And I feel like this isn't really a bad thing because whatever they show off here is playable on the Switch 2. Right? So it's like
Right.
there's no problem with just a little bit more games. And at least they're gonna get this out of the way so that the Switch 2 Direct isn't bulked up with a bunch of stuff that isn't exciting for people.
Yeah,
Honestly, I
it
think
feels
it's a really
weird.
smart way to do things.
It'd feel weird if like Kirby Planet Robobot popped up in the Switch 2
Yeah.
Direct. It's like I'm excited for it, but like, come on, you know?
Come on.
Do you guys remember
Yeah.
when they revealed Smash Brothers Brawl and then they showed like Mario's upgrade, Link's upgrade, Pikachu's upgrade, and they all looked like substantially better. And then they showed Kirby's upgrade, and it was from Pink Blob to Pink Blob. Like, Kirby Planet Robot on Switch is gonna look probably about as good as it looks on Switch 2, minus slightly sharper.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I agree. Like, a game like that, you could have in a Switch 1 related presentation. You don't need to save it for a Switch 2 presentation. Totally agree. I personally would hope that it's a direct mini or a partner for one reason and one reason alone. Just because for that one rumor that Prime 4 isn't in the Switch 2 Direct, like, I want it to be a Switch 2 game, right? Like, I want it to be a Switch 2 game. I've believed it's going to have a Switch 2 version for some time. But if there's a big Switch 1 Direct this week, I think that has other potential implications, right? However, if there's a mini or a partner, I really doubt Prime 4 is going to be in there. In which case, either A, it's in the Switch 2 Direct, and that rumor is wrong, or B, we don't know what's going on with
We
it.
just don't see it at all.
Which that just seems
That would blow.
it seems so unlikely that would be the scenario, right? I will say, apparently there are some other people suggesting it is a partner or a direct mini, like Nash Wheel saying it's a direct mini. I saw someone else say it might be like some kind of partner because there are certain third-party announcements that need to be there. Of course, it can be a mini and still have those third-party announcements. So I'm erring on the side of a mini, and if it's just a mini, then guess what? You can still get your Kirby Planet Robot. You can still have like maybe a Fire Emblem remake. You could still have even
Prime
like
2
a
and
Metroid
3.
Prime 2 and 3
Yeah.
remastered, right?
Mhm.
Maybe they could even use it as a tease for a Prime 4 next week, right? That's me, all hopium copium that somehow Prime 4 is there, right? But like there's a scenario where it could be something like that, which I think more people might find a little bit more believable if it's a mini as opposed to a full-on general. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think it is more reasonable to think that it's going to be a full-on general at this point? Are they just going to have two big directs in the span of a week, or is one going to be a little bit smaller, and then we still have the big one next week, obviously?
I mean,
I
I'm
think
leaning
it's-
towards a mini, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I don't know. I don't know. They haven't done a mini since what, 2020, I think.
Oh, for real?
I guess if they're gonna do
Those
one,
are
I
all-
guess now is a
in
decent
2020
time.
they were all part. Well, they had it. What that was the March.
Yeah, with Xenoblade and
Yeah.
like, Clubhouse
Yeah,
games and
Right.
stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're done with that branding, but if they're gonna use it again now, would probably be a good time. A lot of people in my comments mentioned in 2015 they did that micro direct right before E3 that year, just randomly. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
a little appetizer before the main dish, I guess, so to speak. So I feel like there's enough first party stuff for there to be a general, even without Prime 4. I think they could do a general. It ends one. I think Brazil has been talking about a niche franchise having a new entry or something along those lines.
I've assumed it's been Fire Emblem, but I mean, if it's
Well, that'd be a
something
remake.
else-
And he was saying a new entry.
Most likely,
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure.
Well, he also said something along the lines of a remake to him would still, in theory, be a new game. So
Okay.
it's kind of up for debate.
But between Metroid Prime 2 and 3, Kirby Planet Robobot, Fire Emblem, maybe Wind Waker Twilight Princess, and then the slate of third-party stuff that has leaked over the past week in terms of trademarks, Plants vs. Zombies, My
Sure.
Sims Collection. There's plenty of third-party stuff to talk about. Hollow Knight, please. I think a general could make sense, but I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll find out tomorrow if they announce it in advance. But if they shadow drop it on Thursday, probably a mini, I guess.
Well, everyone's gonna be panicking if nothing happens tomorrow.
Just
I'm
like in
looking forward
January.
to that. Right. I'm
Yeah.
almost kind of expecting that at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like a general makes sense if they're gonna touch on Prime 4. For Prime 4 always assumed that they were gonna go for something like they did with Breath of the Wild, where it
Yeah.
also comes to the Wii U, but that's not like the main thing. So I could kind of see them like showing off aspects of the game and maybe just being like, tune in a couple days to see the Switch 2 version of this.
That would send me through the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You would be pissed?
No, I'd be like,
Okay,
I'd
you'd
be
be
on cloud
happy.
9. I'd
Okay,
be
yeah.
extremely. Yeah, that would be a good fly
Right.
through the roof. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean that's what I was expecting going into this direct. I mean I don't really know what else they would talk about, other than the few things that we've touched on like ports and whatnot. But I just feel like they don't really do like presentations without having something to say, even if it is a mini. Like they have some kind of weird big game to announce, even at minis. I feel.
Yeah,
I don't
there's
know.
got to be at least something worthy of note, right? Like I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Because
Something
like,
that
what
Go on.
differentiates this from being a Twitter drop? You know?
It could be that playtest
Facts.
game,
yeah,
whatever that
Ooh.
is.
yes, you took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean that's a new game, right? And I think what's
Right.
interesting about that one is that we may not have seen it in its final form. So, like when they actually want to put a name to it, right? Like actually allow footage to be shared, right? And not block people for putting blurred screenshots. You know, like that could be a pretty big deal. Like if you put something like that in a presentation, maybe that alone can if we're talking about like a brand new Nintendo title, I then start to like, all right, maybe it can be a general, right? Like I remember the last time we had a direct mini, the closer was a remaster, right?
It
If
was
I'm not
Xenoblade,
mistaken.
wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when did Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition come out? Because it was a 2020
It came out
release.
in May. Yeah.
Right. So so they closed that direct with another trailer on it, right? So I think if I remember the timeline correctly, they initially announced Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition 1, right, the first one, in a September direct in 2019. That's where like it was kind of like that gray trailer, right, like that black and white trailer where they showed Alvis, and then the second trailer was kind of like giving us a much bigger overview, and that was the closing presentation, like little thing for that Switch mini direct, right? I mean, I would argue that's a pretty big deal. Like that's almost a remake, right? That's one of Nintendo's more ambitious remasters. Has new content in there, so I mean that's not on the level of Prime 4, but
Yeah.
something like a Fire Emblem remake, for example, I would put on the same level. Like if that's like their big new thing, like that could be like the showstopper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious how many, because we obviously know about Pokemon and Metroid Prime, but are there any other brand new games coming to Switch 1 this year? I would assume there are. I don't think they're going to be as big as Pokemon or Metroid, but I assume there will be some new games coming to Switch 1. Also, games that maybe for Switch 1 and 2, but just because they can easily run Switch 1, even if they are a new game, I would assume there's going to be a couple of those. So, yeah, I agree with Bo that there's definitely enough for them to possibly do a general. I don't know if it will be a general, but I don't think it will be just a partner showcase at the very least. I think there's got to be some first party announcements, including probably a new game or two that we don't know about, even if it's nothing large.
I'm all for the surprises. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I
That's
mean, there's
what it
always
is.
surprises.
People are always quick to write off the Switch 1, Switch 2 Direct. Oh, it's over. No more Switch 1 games. But I wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo's just like, yep, here's a new Tomodachi Life and a new Golden Sun, just out of nowhere. Every Direct, there's just something random. So, like, I think they could have a pretty big game left for Switch 1 that maybe fans will be angry as a Switch 1 game, but they'll be able to play it on Switch 2, so it's fine. And it'll come out after Switch 2.
Metroid Prime 4 returns.
Metroid Prime 5.
Yeah, that's Prime 5 is a Switch 1 exclusive, but
Yeah, there you
Prime
go.
4 is a cross-gen. Yeah. What about that Pikmin spinoff? Like
I think that's possible.
That feels like a very, weird end of life kind of thing. And if you don't pay attention to Nash Weedle, which most people don't, would be a complete left field surprise thing, right?
I mean, they did it before with Hey Pikmin. That was a late 3DS game.
Right.
Yeah.
What would that be, though? Like, what do you imagine a Pikmin spinoff is? I was talking with a friend earlier. I want, like, a Pikmin roguelike or something. Something with, like, endless cave exploration or something. You have
that'd be
different
sick.
runs. Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
That could
Something
be
like
fun.
that could be cool. I don't want another Hey Pikmin. I didn't like Hey Pikmin.
I
I
didn't
don't
buy
think
it.
many people
didn't play
did
it.
like Hey Pikmin. I did not buy it, but I don't think the reception was great for it.
Hey Pikmin HD.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of 3DS games I didn't buy just because I was already so invested in my Switch,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
like, outside of Samus Returns, which I
Traded
really
in my 3DS
desperately
to
wanted
get-
a
to get
Switch
a Switch.
version of. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's interesting to think about, like, what could they do with Pikmin as, like, not straying away from the primary gameplay. And I look at like the nighttime gameplay in Pikmin 4. Like I wouldn't be
Hard to find
opposed to a game just built on like that concept. And obviously it wouldn't be as big. Maybe it's not even a $60 game, right? Maybe it's like a $30-$40 game. That I'd be very into that. Or like you said, like a roguelike would be very interesting as well. There's really a few different things they could do. Because Pikmin has like layers of different styles of gameplay, right? Like you have the Dandori verses, right? You do have the dungeons, right? You have the overworld exploration. Like they could kind of turn it into 3 or 4 different games if they really wanted to.
Yeah. I mean, they could even go deeper into the strategy and have it be like, I think it's like 4X is like the PC strategy games where it's like you have like a huge map with like thousands and thousands of Pikmin or something. More into the strategy side. That'd be kind of cool, maybe. I don't know. I think there's plenty they could do with Pikmin, and I think given how Pikmin 4 sold, I think it's clear Nintendo wants to make Pikmin one of their big like 5 franchises or so. So a spinoff would make sense around now. I mean, it's been what, 2 years since Pikmin 4?
And before they announced a Pikmin live action.
Pikmin live action movie, Pikmin 5, and like
God.
I mean, they had
years.
all those shorts that were made by, I think, did Miyamoto make those? I forget who made those.
Yes,
He was
he did.
involved, yeah.
Yeah, they're his babies, and they're pretty creepy. They're fun, right? But like, there's like one where like Olimar's like juicing a tomato, and the Pikmin think he's like eating like Pikmin, and you just see like a bunch of like, it's like juice, but it looks like pulpy blood.
Right.
So it's kind of like scary but hilarious at the same time. Yeah.
Pikmin horror game spinoff.
You are frozen.
Nope.
Oh, no.
My camera gets weird.
You'll be all right. Yeah, if you could turn the camera on and off, or you can jump in and out, like whatever works.
Yeah, I'll be right back.
All right. Yeah, I mean, just thinking about like, it could be anything. It's Nintendo. It's so hard to predict. We still been, I guess, like, and there are some things that I feel like Nintendo is working on, right? But I've kind of like stopped talking about them because we're kind of at a point where it just seems kind of like hard to believe that they would put them out now because of the transition, right? One of those being F-Zero, for example. Like I think they are working on F-Zero, but are they gonna put it out now when they have a new Mario Kart on the way?
Yeah,
it just kind of feels like probably are working on F-Zero, but I don't think we're going to see that announced anytime soon. Josie, I don't know if you can hear me, but all I see is like a black box.
Camera, I think it's like it gets messed up sometimes.
Oh, yeah, probably like
crappy my
overheated
internet
or
is.
something. Oh,
Honestly, I think it's literally my internet. It can't. It's like supposed to be really good, and then it falls apart. Constantly.
been there.
I've had internet like that before.
Awful.
Yeah. I mean, this works. Feel free to experiment, but
I'm not on
we
camera
can hear
either.
you, so it's not the
Okay.
end of the world.
Or-
Yeah, but anyways, like what I was saying, right? Like I would like to like there are games I think Nintendo's working on, but because we are transitioning over to Switch 2, I think they would hold off on them, like in F-Zero, for example, right? I just don't think that they would announce that now. Or like a Star Fox would be great, right? But I
was
don't
gonna mention that, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think we're gonna see F-Zero or Star Fox in a direct mini, as like right before a big Switch 2 presentation. Like maybe we see Star Fox in the Switch 2 presentation if they want that to be part of like the year one lineup. Like that would be an amazing surprise, and I think actually pretty plausible, but definitely not in a direct mini right beforehand.
Mhm.
Pikmin spinoff, sure. The NSO game, yeah. Remasters, remakes, sure. I'll throw out one that is a maybe, right? Like a lot of us have talked about like a Kid Icarus Uprising getting remastered.
Please.
That'd be awesome.
I could see that. I mean, it's a remaster, right? So like I wouldn't, I think remasters are on the table.
Yeah, I can also see a lot of like smaller stuff like Box Boy and their like second party IPs kind of like
Sure.
like
Like Endless
Pushmo.
Ocean last year, right?
Yeah, Endless Ocean was one. Like I think
Yeah.
we were due for like a type of Pushmo game or whatever they were doing with that franchise.
I liked Pushmo. I would be happy with that.
Yeah. And Box Boy's great. That's like what I
Yeah. No, those are good points. For sure. Do we have anything else we want to say on this before I get into some super chats?
I mean, just the Switch One Direct being a thing. I mean, I definitely think that it makes more sense to talk about Switch One games before the Switch Two Direct. In my humble opinion, because I do think that Switch 2 Direct obviously is a much bigger deal. So getting these smaller announcements out of the way first, so people will have time to pay attention to those, for even if it's just a week, which maybe some people feel is a mistake. I don't know why they didn't just do this in like earlier in March or February, but maybe they have their own reasons. But I definitely think we need Switch 1 announcements, preferably before Switch 2, because if they don't do one now, I mean, they have to talk about Switch 1 stuff sometime, right? Are they just going to have a direct
Yeah.
like a week or two after the Switch 2 direct when people are
Right.
all hyped for Switch 2 and aren't really looking for that as much for the more hardcore Nintendo fans? I don't know that that's the best idea. So I think it does make more sense to do it before.
I agree with you. It's why I thought we would have something way sooner than this, right?
Yeah.
Like they kind of waited but it's like they waited until I gave up on it. The idea,
Facts.
pretty much. Because yes, like once next week comes around, like it's not just a direct. Immediately afterwards are all the Switch 2 experience events.
Right.
We've actually already heard about some people are getting invited to events outside the experience events as well. So we're gonna have press events, experience events, tons of previews on these Switch 2 games. So like April is going to be chock full of a whole bunch of marketing. Actually, in 2 days, the Seattle Mariners are going to be on their away games. They're going to have the Switch 2 patch. So, like, marketing is actually kicking off this weekend for Switch 2, basically. And so it's going to be this big thing. We have debates on if it's coming out May or June. Basically, same difference. Like, once we hit April 2nd, it's going to be all about Switch 2. And it's going to be, I do agree, it's going to be kind of hard to find, like, a good time over the next few months for them to kind of provide a decent focus on Switch 1. Unless it's something that feels highly relevant to a Switch 2 thing. Like, for example, Metroid Prime 2 and 3 Remastered, like, I could see being announced after April 2nd because they would be teases for Metroid Prime 4, which some of us still think, despite the rumor, that Prime 4 is going to be heavily involved with the launch of Switch 2, or at least the launch window, right? So, like, something like that could maybe make sense, right? But otherwise, like, if it's not announced beforehand, I feel like we're going to have to wait months.
Yeah. I guess that's my question. Why didn't they do it in February? Because we all expected it in February, and then, like you said, we all kind of gave up at this point. I like to imagine there's some greater reasoning to it, and I want to think, alongside you, Andres, I want to think they are going to announce Prime 2 and 3, and then they're going to say, hey, tune in next week to see Prime 4. I think that is just such a... If we're talking like, okay, why did they wait until end of March? To me, it has to be about momentum and marketing and just going straight into that Switch 2 event. Prime 2 and 3, it just makes so much sense. And that way, they're hyping up the Switch 2 Direct. Anybody who watches this and sees Prime 2 and 3, maybe Prime 2 is available immediately. You can start playing it, get hyped up for Prime 4. That's good synergy right there. There has to be a reason for it being this close to the Switch 2 Direct. I don't think they lost a flash drive like some people are saying, you know? There's got to be a reason.
I think momentum is the best argument, right? It kind of depends on what they're going to show, though, right? Like, if they don't have anything to show, then
they shouldn't be doing it if they don't have anything to show.
I mean, what I mean is, if it's just a partner showcase, for example, then the partner showcase is happening because they literally have contractual agreements to showcase a whole bunch of third-party games, right? That would be the only reason why. Like, yeah, that's just it.
Well, and I mean, that's
although
the
you
thing.
can still argue why didn't they do it sooner? Like, it's still been done sooner.
Because if anything, a partner showcase right now that is a bunch of ports and remakes of like niche JRPGs, a new Tales remaster, Plants vs Zombies, like that will get eaten alive in the talk of Switch 2.
Oh yeah.
I feel like if it is a partner showcase, I would still expect something from Nintendo. Yeah, I mean, I know they don't develop Endless Ocean, but they do publish it. That was there. Sure. Age of Calamity popped up in one. Cadence of Hyrule.
Yeah.
They still have to have something. So even if it is a partner showcase, I think we'll get 1 or 2 first-party games. They can do whatever they want.
So, I mean, I don't know if this would count like I think anything can count if basically I think it counts if Nintendo decides it counts, right? Like that's the ironclad rule. Whatever Nintendo says goes. Doesn't matter if we think it makes sense or not. If there's any history for it. If Nintendo says it goes, it goes. But for example, like what if Iron Galaxy remastered Prime 2, right?
Yeah.
Like technically that's a partner project because Nintendo didn't do it. A third-party partner did, and so that would be not too different from an Age of Calamity, Caves of Hyrule, Endless Ocean situation. Nintendo IP tinkered with, worked on by a third-party partner.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think some of those things could show up, but I mean, of course, we've also seen partner showcases that don't have a first-party offering, right? It's not guaranteed.
When was the last one? It's been a while.
Well,
'Cause
we
the
had,
one
like,
in-
we had
the one-
3 in 2020, right? So
Yeah.
I don't remember. We didn't have 3 published Nintendo games announced from partner showcase from what I remember, at least.
Are you talking the ones during COVID?
Yeah.
Well, because so I think the first one had nothing. The second one had Cadence. The third one had nothing, and then the fourth one had Hyrule Warriors. But then we had a first-party published game in both partner showcases last year, being Endless Ocean and Fitness Boxing 3.
Okay.
So I think they kind of have set a precedent of like there's going to be something more important, even if it is a Fitness Boxing 3 tier game that like I mean no one cares or even really use it as a Nintendo game.
I just remember we were joking about Fitness Boxing 3 for the longest. Like I was like, hey, what if Fitness Boxing 3 is a December game?
Yeah, and then it
Not
was
being at all serious about it, but it was just because they've like to put Fitness Boxing in December, right? Like that is hilarious. That wasn't a partner showcase. I will say that I saw a theory presented by Doctor 81. I'm not sure I agree. I feel like I need more evidence to kind of like buy into this idea. But the Doctor 81's theory is basically that if a rumor, like for example, like literally what just happened this February, like PH Brazil reported on a direct happening in February, like last year, right? Like, so we kind of heard about this from way back. And the basic theory goes that Nintendo likes a surprise. And so if a direct has been leaked way in advance, they have enough time to move things around just because their primary focus is to surprise us. I kind of understand a little bit, like they do want to surprise us, but I also feel like, are they really going to delay a direct 6 to 7 weeks just because one journalist said he heard it's happening in February? Something that's happened the last 6 straight years.
The issue with that is like third parties would then also have to move dates and their marketing plans because usually we get some shadow drops from third parties. So like,
well,
gonna keep mentioning because I'm very excited. But like Plants vs Zombies probably going to be shadow dropped. I would imagine that feels like a good shadow drop game. Yeah. Would EA really be like, oh yeah, we can just delay it a full 6 weeks just because you want to surprise fans? I don't know. It is a cool theory. Hasn't Nintendo actually talked about how they want to surprise people with like the Switch marketing and they don't want to like stay complacent or something? I feel like I remember reading them saying that.
I can't think of the exact article, but I mean it checks out.
Yeah.
By the way, Josie, are you there? No.
Oh no. She also changed to a me profile picture.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I just don't think I can do the camera for some reason.
That's okay. Your me looks great.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
We love these around here.
That's what I'm saying.
But I mean, Josie, I know you've been in and out, right? But I just kind of presented this idea. It's not my theory, right? It's a theory from Dr. 81. But his theory is that if a direct is kind of like leaked or rumored by, let's say, like a journalist like PH Brazil, like a month or two in advance, like long enough in advance that they have time to change it around, they probably will because they don't want people to they want to surprise people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you make of that? Like, do you think that's pretty plausible or what's your take?
I think it depends on like how big that story gets, maybe. Like if that's what everybody's expecting, I can see them wanting to
You cut out.
Uh-oh.
Oh my god. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. It feels like that's a lot of work for them to do.
Oh no.
You cut out again.
Oh no.
Like when I hear you, you sound great, but your sentences are getting cut off.
Got that dial up.
Well, do what you can to work on that. But let's check in with some super chats, and then
Okay.
we'll move on. All right. So Taker610, thank you for your super chat, buddy. Wind Waker on Switch finally. Right? Right?
Could be.
I mean, it's one of those things where I think we're past the point of like this is like a Silk Song thing, right? Like, sure, maybe someday it's gonna be right. It's gonna actually happen. But I don't think we know.
I think we're gonna get something else this year that's not Wind Waker. I mean, maybe Wind Waker could also be there in addition to what I expect, which is Hyrule Warriors. I still think that's happening.
Okay.
But also there's
For Switch
Breath of the
1?
Wild, Hyrule Warriors for Switch 2. I think
Okay.
that's something they would announce in the Direct. I also, whole different thing. I think they're gonna tease the next 3D Zelda game. Might be a little bit of a hot take, a little bit crazy, but I think they will. I don't know what you said in your video, Andres. But did you say the same thing? Might have to get that listen.
I mean, I don't know if I was as confident about it as you are, but I definitely kind of like. I mean,
I think there is a good chance, at the very least. I'm not going to be surprised if it's not there, but based on how they've announced every 3D Zelda game has been announced years in advance, and it's only gotten longer as time has gone on. So if we're looking at like a 2028 game, announcing it now kind of feels right. And I think given how instrumental Breath of the Wild has been to the Switch, but also Tears of the Kingdom, and how that was marketed the entire generation, you want to get that thing announced early. Maybe not on April 2nd, but like June or September Direct. I think it's getting announced next 18 months easy.
I agree
Okay.
with you.
I agree with 18 months.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know how to feel
That
about
would be
closer than
if it's April 2nd. That's like the one more big thing. Like, they're going all out, gun swinging.
Right.
Right.
And then I would say if it doesn't happen on April 2nd, each Direct, I will not shut up about it until it does happen, because I do think it's coming.
So,
I mean,
I
we
almost
saw
think-
Tears of the Kingdom for first time in 2019.
Yeah,
so-
exactly. And Breath of the Wild, I mean, even if it's like in January 2013 when Aonuma was on the Wii U Direct being like, yeah, we're going to make a new weird Zelda, we're going to rethink the conventions, I could see even that happening. And then maybe that leads into like a Hyrule Warriors announcement or Breath of the Wild 4K, whatever.
Right.
so
They could definitely talk about that, because I do think those a remaster of Breath of the Wild, maybe an update for Tears of the Kingdom as well, could definitely be in there. So maybe they'll talk about that at the same time.
Yeah.
the thing about like a new Zelda thing, right? Like there is a lot of history for Zelda in some capacity being involved with the opening of a new generation, right? Like you look to the N64, right? We had Zelda 64 tech demo, right? The 2000 Space War tech demo, which showed Link versus Ganondorf. Like that was, a very hype thing. Going into we had Twilight Princess as a launch title for the Wii, right?
Right.
And then for the Wii U, we had the tech demo, right, with Link versus the Goma, right? And then, for Switch, we literally had Breath of the Wild. So like every main console generation, if it wasn't a launch title, there was a technical demonstration, right? And so you bring up the Breath of the Wild thing. Maybe it's something as lame as just Breath of the Wild 4K, right? Like, I think it'll be more than that, to be honest with you. But
Yeah, we'll get all the DLC in there and all that. Maybe a little bit more work.
I'm speaking from a visual perspective. Right?
Yeah,
'Cause I
yeah,
think the idea behind this to kind of showcase, hey, this is new hard. This is like you think about a lot of at least the technical demonstrations, right? Like the idea behind it was to kind of showcase, hey, this is how Zelda can look on the new hardware, right? Like they want to excite people. And Breath of the Wild at a higher resolution is not going to do that.
With Wind Waker HD, they kind of use that as a
That's true,
kind
actually,
of
yeah.
a way to get used to the Wii U's development. And I feel like they could definitely do that with Breath of the Wild. Get used if it has DLSS, then that could be a great way for them to learn how that works and incorporate that into engines. Various other, I mean, maybe somehow they've gotten some ray tracing effect, although I don't feel like ray tracing in Breath of the Wild would change too much with that game's art style. But definitely draw distances being pushed out a lot. I mean, they could definitely do various different upgrades that could be them just testing what they can do on the hardware.
I know Breath of the Wild 4K is like a lame thing that we talk about. That just kind of makes sense for them to do. But honestly, just talking about it, I'm so excited to replay that game.
I would be too.
Yeah.
Especially because
60
we heard the
FPS?
game. Yeah, 60 FPS
Yeah.
was at the demos with
Yeah.
near instant load times. So I mean, all that kind of checks out. That should definitely be Switch 2 should be capable of
Yeah.
all of those things for a Switch class title for sure.
So, all right. I think that, I mean, first off, just to make myself clear, like, I absolutely believe that Breath of the Wild has been worked on, right? Like,
Yeah.
I absolutely believe they do have an enhanced version to some capacity ready for Switch 2. Be that just as a technical demonstration, which I find highly unlikely because they don't really do technical demonstrations publicly anymore. Privately, yes, they do. And as maybe some sort of enhancement or a remaster that you can purchase or get a free upgrade or something, yes, something like that I think is happening.
It's free
But-
money. Put it on the shelf with all the DLC. I mean, it's going to keep
Yes.
selling for another decade.
Absolutely. But do I think that takes the place of a Zelda showcase to hype up fans and kind of get them eager for the next generation? Absolutely not. Like I don't.
Yeah.
I think they're two separate things. Now, can a Breath of the Wild remaster perhaps delay that a little bit? Sure. It could. Like maybe we don't see anything else but Breath of the Wild 4K in the Switch 2 Direct. Like that I can see, right? Josie, how you doing?
Hey,
Camera's working. Muted.
Okay, thank God.
Oh, there it is. There it is. I hear you.
Hey, and we hear you. How's it going?
Okay, let's go. It's good. How are you guys?
Cool. Glad to have you back.
I was so sorry.
That's all right. It's not a big deal. Right now we're just talking about like Zelda. Like, can Zelda show up in the Switch 2 Direct? Right. The Taker was asking Wind Waker on Switch finally, and we're like, maybe not, maybe so. I mean, what's your take? Like, what kind of Zelda thing do you think we're seeing soon, if anything at all?
I feel like if there's any time to do it, it's now, kind of. So we don't have any Zelda specifically for Switch 2, so I could see them marketing this as a like the Wind Waker's finally out, and you can even play it on your Switch 2 if you got it that way. So honestly, I could kind of see it. I don't think there's any reason why they wouldn't do it, but also it's like Nintendo, so it's just, and especially those ports, like they've made so much sense for so long that it's hard to not give up on it. But
And you're talking specifically about Wind Waker.
yeah, I don't think they're gonna double pack it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think they can make too much money off of them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're selling Advance Wars as a $60 game, they can get 60 for Wind Waker by itself.
Well, Advance Wars is 2 games.
Ah, you got me.
One and two
Fully
reboot
remade
camp.
from the ground up, actually.
Correct. Yeah.
But-
Yeah. I mean, they're far simpler games, but there was 2 of them.
But I think with the staying power Zelda has, probably
Right.
individuals.
I mean, it's kind of like you look at Metroid Prime Remastered. Probably from like a visual technical perspective, Prime Remastered is like the most ambitious remaster Nintendo's ever done.
Mhm.
Yet it was $40, right? Meanwhile, Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword HD is almost just like an emulation, right? Like with hardly any new
Mhm.
content, $60 full dollars. It's
Yeah.
and it's not even
Yeah.
nearly as old, right? Like it's just
They don't seem to price things based on like how ambitious the project is, just based on
No.
what name is attached to it.
Yeah, like the IP.
Yeah.
I think it's based off what they can get away with.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
classic. Like people do this all the time at stores. They'll sell something that's really cheap and get like a ton of profit off it because it costs them like nothing to make. And they sell it for a ton of more than they cost them. But then other things they have that's like it cost them a lot. And they're not really selling it much more. So they kind of have these projects where they make a ton of money to compensate for the projects where they're not making as much money.
Mm-hmm.
Mate, I see your point there.
Country Returns.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. But honing on just kind of like for the record, my stance of Wind Waker is like I wouldn't be totally shocked if we see it come to Switch later this year because yeah, with the whole backwards compatible thing on Switch 2, like everyone could play it, right? Like that's an easy 4 to 5 million copies sold. That's easy money for Nintendo, and you could still have like a Breath of the Wild 4K as well. Like both those things are kind of like really minor things in the grand scheme of things that would make a lot of money for Nintendo and would tide us over until they have more major offerings for later. But I feel like the bigger question for us to ask as Zelda fans, right, is like, do we get like a glimpse of like that bigger thing in this Switch 2 Direct, right? And like, Bo, like, yeah, you made a video on it, I made a video on it. And Brandon, you brought you both kind of touched on this idea, right? Like there's always something that like Zelda is like, we see something Zelda in the opening of every generation, right? Like if it's not a technical demonstration, it's a launch title. So it's been one or the other. I think we're past the point of Nintendo doing like public tech demos. They have the ones behind closed doors, but we're not going to see that, right? And I don't think we're getting a launch title either, unless it's Breath of the Wild 4K. Like I don't think we're getting a launch title because Ecosystem was last year, Tears of the Kingdom was the year before. That's not happening. But can we get a glimpse, right? Like, can we get like a teaser? I mean, Tears of the Kingdom was shown off June 2019. Yep. Breath of the Wild came out March 2017. So a little over two years there, right? Like that's okay. Right now, where are we at? It's going to be April, and Tears of the Kingdom came out May 2023. So like almost 2 years, a little bit under 2 years, but almost 2 years. So like the timing is not too far off, right? Like, so maybe they could tease something there. And I don't think the whole sequel argument makes sense for Tears of the Kingdom because that game took longer than Breath of the Wild. Like, I don't know what happened, but it took longer, right? So I think it's just a situation of that's just what it is, right? Like, assuming this all takes 6 years, if they follow the same path, like this could be an event where we do see that teaser. I do remember we go back to January 2013. I believe that was the first Wii U focused Nintendo Direct of the Wii U era, because Wii U came out holiday 2012, correct?
Yeah.
And in that Direct, we did have a Zelda segment, a pretty big one. AJ Numa came out on stage. He talked about the fundamentals of Zelda and what's kind of going into the future Zelda project, which eventually came to be known as Breath of the Wild, right? Like they wanted to change convention. So there was actually some really good clues on what direction they were headed in back then. So it's fun to go back and look at that. But they also took that opportunity to say, hey, like Brian, as you mentioned earlier, like, hey, we've been actually working on like the graphics engine, and we decided to run some ideas through Wind Waker, and take a look at these screenshots. It looks pretty good, right? And so they announced the development of Wind Waker HD. And so I think it's an interesting thing to look at, because that wasn't the Wii U unveiling event, right? That was the first big Direct for Wii U after it launched, right? And so maybe we see something Zelda in this Direct, maybe a teaser of an Ocarina of Time remake, or like just like a teaser of the next new 3D Zelda 3-4 years in advance. Like, I think both are possible. But I think it's also totally just as possible that we wait until the next big like summer Direct or holiday Direct, or like, hey, so we're still early on in the console's life where they announce these things, right? Like, think about the first year Switch. For example, Metroid Prime 4. Metroid Prime 4 was announced not at the Switch 1 showcase in that January of 2017, but in the summer Direct, the summer spotlight. Because throughout the year, they're probably going to want to give us different things to be excited about that are coming later down the road. So it doesn't all have to happen here, but I mean, I think it's kind of like somehow Zelda I do think will be mentioned, but maybe it's not the big thing we're hoping for. That could happen sometime within the next year or so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I could just see Hyrule Warriors once again, to mention it, and then I could see Aonuma just being like, "Yeah, we're working on the next thing. Stay tuned," and then we see it later this year, maybe early next or something. But it's important to sell the vision of a console very early on, as we saw with the E3 2017. They had Metroid Prime 4. They even had Ishihara coming out and saying, like, yeah, Pokemon's going to come to this thing.
Yeah,
so
good point.
Out of every Nintendo franchise who announced early, I think Zelda is the one that makes the sense to do it. There's a history of them doing it. So I think it'll happen sooner than people think.
Yeah.
I can see Aonuma coming on and being like, hey, it's happening, we're doing stuff, it's in the works, but I don't feel like we're gonna see anything really. Because if you also look at the track record of being like, hey, this cool Zelda game might come to this console, it's like the thing with the GameCube that wasn't actually the Zelda that they talked about, right? And then like even like Zelda Wii U, right, which ended up being Breath of the Wild, looks so different than it does now. So it feels like they might just like not want to burn people again, maybe, in my eyes. But yeah, I definitely think they'll touch on Zelda happening. I just don't know what form, I guess, that would take.
Sure. I mean, I think it's a good point to make, because like, yeah, they don't want to get us excited about something that's not going to happen anymore, which is why I don't think they do tech demos. Like, because we still think about that 2011 like Zelda U tech demo, which looks amazing even now.
Yeah,
and that's never gonna happen. Well, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's what Twilight Princess becomes someday, right? Yeah, like I think like our best case scenario is either A, a quick look at Ocarina of Time remake, which personally I doubt, because I feel like even though I believe that's happening for the 40th anniversary, given that it's a remake, it would have a very quick turnaround. In other words, it's not being shown off yet, in my opinion. But for like the next new 3D Zelda, even though if it's like 3 or 4 years away, like if they did something like, you look at the Tears of the Kingdom first trailer, where it was just called Sequel to Breath of the Wild, like we got to see that it's still in Hyrule and it's Link and Zelda. Like we got like if it's something like that where they already clearly have the art style in mind, and so when we do eventually get it, it's not going to be like a big surprise. Like that's possible, right? Or like the Zelda U one where we just saw Hyrule for the first time. If they're at that point, maybe. If not, then no.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's gonna be there like footage. I don't think we're gonna see footage for another like year, to be honest. I know me and Andres both pretty highly believe that there will be like an Ocarina of Time remake potentially happening. So if that is the case, that would definitely be shown first. But even beyond that, I do think this is going to be a big jump visually for the Zelda series, and I don't think that they will have enough time to get it to the point to where they want to show how it looks yet, because I don't think it will be ready for that. I think this game is going to be, obviously it's going to be a new art style from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. It's not going to be a sequel to that. So I don't know if they'd be ready to show it quite yet. But in a year or two, then I think we could definitely get a glimpse.
I mean, maybe it is just Breath of the Wild. Maybe I'm overthinking this. Like, maybe it's Anuma coming out on stage saying, hey, we are working on the next Zelda game. Or maybe it's not even Anuma. It might be Fujibayashi, right? Like, at some point, it seems like he's going to take the helm. But either one of them, he just comes out on stage and says, yep, we're working on the next Zelda game. Stay tuned. Also, here's Breath of the Wild. Looks pretty good, right? You can
that's kind of fully what I expect.
All right.
Yeah. Keep the Breath of the Wild 4K announcement like low key though. If you remember 2017 presentation, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe didn't have a trailer. It was just like being shown on screens and stuff. And then later on Twitter and like through a press release, they're like, yeah, it's Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Here's the release date, all that. Maybe they do something similar. Breath of the Wild isn't like even announced. It's just like, yep, there's a 4K version.
I don't want a trailer for that.
Yeah, don't take up 3 minutes of that direct with a
unless it has new content. Like if it has like a whole expansion story, okay, yes. But we don't expect that, right? So probably not. But let's move on. So I'm gonna catch up with some super chats here, and then I want to get into the Metroid thing, and then we'll get into that Insider Gaming Online article, which is pretty crazy too. All right, so Matt McDonald Media, thank you for the super chat. Hey Andre, random question, but do you think a Zelda side project game that is a life sim where you choose your race and live life would be cool?
That'd be sick as hell. I'd play the hell out of it. That'd be so good. I'd
get
love
one
that.
buyer. There you go. I don't know, man. Like personally, I put in like 30 hours in Animal Crossing, and then it started giving me anxiety because I was like, oh, I should be doing this in real life. So I don't know.
Imagine though the cozy game girls. They jump on that. They have that, and then you also have mainline Zelda. Zelda would be a household name. Like it'd be going so crazy.
I agree
that is
with
a good
you on
idea.
that. Yeah. I mean, there is that, like, in terms of like if there's an audience for that, like they're totally absolutely
huge audience.
Yeah, I do think Zelda needs more spin-offs. Mario has all these crazy amounts of spin-offs, and Zelda has like sometimes there's a multiplayer game. That's it.
Yeah.
And a life sim would be actually such a good idea because of how many different they have all the different like races, like the Gerudo and all that stuff that you could choose between. Like, I mean, the customization in that could be so awesome.
I'll tell you that if I get to be like live the life of like Prince Sidon and like deal with like all the political stuff, and it's like, oh man, I gotta marry like this Zora from another tribe, like that. Okay, like I could get into it a little bit. Like that could be hilarious.
That'd be so good if they like let you date too in that game. That'd be so funny.
Or like, what if you're like a knight, for Hyrule, like or like a Goron, or you're a Gerudo lady who has to go on a quest to find her lover. Like that's okay. All right. I'm getting into this a little bit more than I thought I would because of my Zelda lore stuff. All right. Okay. You know what? I'll concede it will be cool. And
That's
I
a
do think
phenomenal
it'll probably
idea.
sell like 20 million copies.
Yeah,
maybe
pitch
more.
that baddie to Nintendo. People would eat that up. It'd probably sell the amount of Breath of the Wild and Animal Crossing combined. That'd get every audience of gamer. Oh my god. And if
Nice.
like literally if you can date, holy moly, the TikToks would go viral. It'd go nasty. You have to do that.
Be the
That'd
new
so good.
Baldur's Gate.
Yes, that'd be crazy.
Now, all right, this is a fun idea. Yeah, it'll be cool.
And you could pick like a career path. Oh, give it to me right now. That'd be so good.
If there's
We're kind of describing fantasy life a little bit here. You have your different
True.
jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
if there's some combat
Man.
involved, like if there's still like little battles and
Yeah, I mean, they could
skirmishes,
have like survival crafting elements and stuff. They could have
That's
like
what I'm
town
saying.
building stuff.
I
They
mean,
could have all
Stardew
kinds of
Valley
stuff.
has fighting in it, right? Like,
Yeah.
Stardew
Exactly.
Valley is like I
got the
actually really
caves.
like Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley, I think,
That's
like
great
more
game.
than Animal Crossing because it has a little bit more of that blend.
Mhm.
That's probably why I kept theorizing for Animal Crossing. They should like have like a DLC that's like a horror movie or like a detective story like, to figure out
That'd be
who
sick.
murdered which villager.
Detectives would be dope. Be like,
Yeah,
I can't
Yeah, see, if
remember
you
the name
could,
of the
like-
game I was gonna say.
If you could choose your career path, like people who don't want combat don't need to choose a career path with combat, but people who
Super
do,
optional.
like you, bang.
Right.
all right.
Somebody pitch it to
And
Nintendo.
now that
Alright.
this is very fantasy life esque.
And it would be multiplayer too, right? Like I do feel like there should be like you look at Tears of the Kingdom, it feels like they had multiplayer in mind. Like, did you ever go to any of those shrines where they had like 4 different like of those
Mhm.
wings? And you're like, okay, why is there 4? I only need 1, maybe 2 if I lose one, but like there's 4 of them. And it's a massive environment. Like it just kind of feels like there could be 4 links that all kind of play in a playground. Then you think about like they had the sages that would follow you. You had all your NPCs, right? You had the enemies. Like they would have like 30 people fighting each other in an area. Like that engine could probably have several people getting involved at once. So yeah. I think
Matt,
it's
you are a
good idea.
genuine genius. We
Might
should
be
really
this
need to get that
man.
going.
Might
Yeah.
be a leaker. Could be just telling us what's
Oh,
gonna be
yeah.
announced.
We're
Yeah.
seeing April 2nd.
Pioro in
launch title.
disguise.
What if Hero has made?
There's your Zelda game for launch.
Not true. Perfect.
It'll do numbers. Next super chat, Mark Rochelle. Thank you for super chat. Think we could get Sega Saturn or Dreamcast on NSO? Do I think? I do. Do I think like? Can I predict it? I have no idea. Like it's just one of those things. Like, do we have any evidence for it? I don't know if we do, right? But then again, I feel like we have the best evidence we've ever gotten for GameCube NSO, and I'm still not convinced because it's just one of those things where like until it's confirmed, it's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, 100%. But I mean, we've seen Sega on NSO already, so
Yeah.
to think that they wouldn't add more later down the road, I don't see why they wouldn't. Like they wouldn't. Like I think, yeah,
Yeah, it'd be cool. I know. I mean, GameCube would have to happen first because Dreamcast is like same time frame.
right.
So Dreamcast
Oh,
could
yeah,
happen, but
right.
also I feel like
Yeah.
Sega has been reselling a lot of those games, or they're planning on remaking them. Saturn is interesting. There's not that many games on there that I think people care about, but I know emulation for it is very hard. Like there's not like a good Sega Saturn emulator on PC. So I wonder if they would even bother, because like off the top of my head,
Right.
Panzer Dragoon Saga is like one of the most popular games, and we're talking. I mean, that's so
That
big.
has so
Maybe.
many different versions
Right.
that you can play now.
Yeah. So I don't know if they would even bother with Saturn. It'd be cool just to have like a proper way to play some of those games, but
What's the dragon flying game?
Panzer Dragoon.
Is it because there's?
Yeah.
I think
So there's a normal shooter, Panzer Dragoon, but then there's
Right.
Saga, which is a JRPG. But it's
okay, that
the
I
same.
get mixed them
Yeah,
up.
same IP though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I like those games are cool. So
Yeah. I mean, it'd be cool if we got Saturn and Dreamcast. But I'm
Well,
just
there
not
was like a
sure.
Sonic game
We'll
on
have to see.
Saturn that I always wanted to play. Like it was like a quasi 3D thing. Like I would love to see it. And I would also love to see Dreamcast. Like being able to play Soul Calibur
Oh yeah.
would be a dream. On that note, if there's GameCube and a Soul Calibur 2, baby, online
Yeah.
With
with
Link.
Link,
There it is.
Mhm.
dude.
That'd be hype.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, that's a Zelda game at launch. I'll take that. I'll be happy. Yeah. So it makes sense, but to Bo's point, like maybe Sega doesn't want to. At the same time, like remaking these games is way different from just like straight emulation with some minor upscaling. So I think there's a world where both can still happen, but it can impact timing. But we'll see what to do. All right, me just trying to catch up here and go a little quicker. George FT with a super chat. Thank you for the super chat. I think it ultimately boils down to the typical answer. Nintendo does whatever they want in regards to planning directs.
True.
They are tough to predict.
Yeah.
They're, I think they're easier to predict mid-generation.
Yeah.
In between
They get
generations,
complacent.
there's just
Yeah.
way too much. There's way too much flux. So yeah.
I mean, there's no possible way for us to answer, like, why did they announce the Switch 2 the same day Donkey Kong came out? Why not a day earlier? Why not a day later? Why did they do that?
What happened to the September Direct that they did for like the last 8-9 years straight or something? Like,
What happened to
Why
the
did they also
February
continue
Direct?
to market Donkey Kong as hard as they did after
More
the
marketing
Switch
than
2
any
was
game
announced?
ever created.
Like literally ever.
Right.
Every day, new tweet.
I mean, I still believe
Gosh.
there's a Donkey Kong, like a new Donkey Kong game coming. I
I
think.
agree.
Oh my
Very
god! I've
possible.
been
I mean, we had the
hoping
Donkey
for
Kong
years.
Park. They're definitely they do want to push Donkey Kong, so that's probably why it has so much marketing. But it is odd for the caliber of game that it is, just a very basic remaster.
I mean, why did they shout out Prime Remastered like that for $40? Like, I don't think that made sense. I don't think that was a
No.
good idea.
I think in hindsight that just doesn't. I don't
Yeah.
know why they did that.
I think they just
Right.
wanted to experiment with like a bigger shadow
Sure.
drop, maybe, and
And
maybe it
That's
didn't pay
possible.
off.
maybe,
They
I
also
mean,
ended up like selling a ton of those, I think, because of how many people bought both the digital and the physical.
Yeah, it was sold out for a while.
there was
Yeah.
a little bit of a
Yeah.
double
Yeah.
dipping boost there, but it didn't even hit 2 million copies. So like, how much of a how good
Right.
did it really do? Like, I think maybe
I'm
like
sure it did
the
good
initial
enough
thing.
for them, but
I don't know. Like, I just feel like a game like Metroid Prime that sold 2.8 million on GameCube, which sold 20 million systems, Switch, which is predominantly a hardcore audience, you would think that something like Metroid Prime would have done better than like what 1.5 million. But
Yeah.
you know, it is a
Yeah.
remaster, and that there is that to consider. Remasters in general, there are exceptions, but in general, remasters do not sell as well as brand new games. I don't know. Point is, Nintendo does a lot of weird stuff. There are maybe some of it can be chalked up to experimentation. So there's that to consider. I mean, Nintendo last year was very strange. The Nintendo Music app, Nintendo Alarmo, and the way they handled MEO, like some of this
And
stuff was
Nintendo
just,
World Championships, yeah, just
yeah,
very weird
Oh yeah.
marketing.
yeah. But to an extent, weird in kind of like an endearing way, right? And I think what's interesting about it, right? Like a lot of us kind of miss, especially us Wii U survivors. We miss the like the quirky Nintendo where they would kind of have like Reggie or Miyamoto like on stage or in a direct, and they would do some sort of weird skit. Like I remember when like Reggie and Iwata like had a Smash Bros battle. Like they used to do fun, cool stuff like that. They don't really do any of that stuff anymore, right? And I think a lot of that stuff was. I almost hate to use this word because I feel like it has a negative connotation, but I mean there's some truth behind it. Like it was fluff because they just didn't have the software to really fill
they did not have the games.
now they have the games. They're a lot more kind of like just straight to the point, which I think is great. But also, I feel like we do lose a little bit of that flair. So then you look at some like just these random things they do. It's a different style, but it is kind of like what other company would ever do this, you know? So I still think there's like that backbone of just weird, trying to surprise, trying to experiment, and then also generational transitions. Like, and then if you account for all that and just like the inner workings of a big company that has to like make deals with different companies, like there's just all these variables that make it almost impossible to like truly predict what they're gonna do.
Oh yeah.
So I'm pretty much caught up now. Boo Mini had the master of gifting memberships has
Yes.
gifted another one. Thank you, Boo Mini. I really appreciate you.
But
But
the goat.
the goat.
Oh yeah.
But I now want to get into the story that has left me
Got you
somewhat,
quivering, got you shaking.
a little bit. All right. So as a lot of you know, I've been on Team Metroid Prime 4 Beyond as a Switch 2 launch title for the longest, right? Like when we heard the Switch 2 wasn't coming out last year, I was like, all right, well, Metroid Prime 4 is not coming out this year either, right? I was so convinced, and I feel like I've been pretty spot on about this because like Metroid Prime 4, it's a 2025 game. It's been working, like like we got that. I don't even want to get into the arguments about why Prime 4 makes sense to like Protestant title because we've gone over it a million times. Point is, I think at this point, most people agreed until today. Because we have this content creator by the name of Extus1S Fake Insider. That's their name on YouTube. And they put out a video, right? And I could play it. It's in Spanish. Do you guys speak Spanish?
I'm technically bilingual, so I can pick up on most of it probably.
Okay. Is it worth playing the clip? It's only like, what, 15, 20 seconds?
I'd play it.
Might as well.
All right. Let's play it. Why not? All right. Let me lower this a little bit. Okay. Because I didn't read the Inside Gaming article too much, but I feel like there might be a little bit of context missing. All right. So this is a video. Let me know if you guys can hear it. I'm going back a few seconds. All right. Here we go.
Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah, we can hear it.
Un poquito.
All right, I'll go back a
Switch
little bit
2.
more.
Que bueno, uno de los principales platos que se espera precisamente en esto Nintendo Direct de Switch 2 es ni más ni menos que Metroid Prime 4. Y aquí vengo un poquito de hacer de polimalo, a bajar el suflé, porque me están comentando que Metroid Prime 4 no tendría presencia en este Nintendo Direct de Switch 2. ¿Significa esto que Metroid Prime 4 se va a retrasar o no se va a lanzar? No tiene por qué. De hecho, me han comentado que más adelante veremos por fin a ni más ni menos que ni Metroid Prime 4. Pero en principio, en este Direct del 2 de abril de Nintendo Switch 2 no se espera Metroid Prime 4, algo que es, como digo, un jarro de agua fría. De hecho, hace unas semanas vi noticias en las que algunas personas en YouTube hablaban de que Metroid Prime 4 estaría al 90% y a mí, pues, como os tengo que comentar con el compromiso con la información, pues me dicen que al contrario, que lo que tiene pinta de que Metroid Prime 4 no va a estar en el Direct de Switch 2 del 2 de abril. Como digo, no es la información por la que más pondría la mano en el fuego del mundo, pero oye, os lo dejo por aquí por si acaso ocurre y al menos para ir asentando las expectativas de cara a este Nintendo Direct, del que seguramente os traiga más información en los próximos días. Hablemos ahora de...
So that was it. I feel like I understood that relatively well. Like the thing with Spanish is like there's different dialects and different words. Like that feels like Spain Spanish. I don't know Spain Spanish, but I think I got a pretty good gist. Josie, what did you make of what was
I
said?
think I got less of a gist than you do, but I think I got a pretty good one as well.
Okay.
I mean, it just seems like he's talking about how it's not going to be at the main direct or at the Switch 2 direct.
Right. So my understanding
Original.
is that he heard what Kiwi Talks talked about, right? Like last week I was over the moon because Kiwi Talks, someone who interviews a whole bunch of different developers, Bethesda, Valve, Retro Studios developers, right? He posted on Twitter, and not just as speculation, hope, but like if you read through it, it's a little bit more like, okay, I've heard, right, that Metroid Prime 4 is going to be in the direct, and its true unveiling is going to blow everything else out of the water. Like that's what he said. Like obviously there's clearly like a loaded thing, but it's based off something he's heard apparently, right? That's the way it was presented. So this guy mentions that and says that he felt the need to express to the contrary because he has been told that Metroid Prime 4 will not be in the direct. However, something that I think people have not kind of mentioned, which he sort of says towards the end, is that while he has heard this, he doesn't want to put his hand totally in the fire on this. And that's obviously some sort of figure of speech. I think you can interpret that in a few different ways. But I think, you could interpret that as he doesn't want to put too much confidence into this. He's simply trying to put it out there. Maybe don't 100% assume Prime 4 is going to be in the direct. And so that's kind of where we're at with this. But like, what do you guys make of this? Like, first of all, this is the first time I've ever heard of this person, right? So like, what is their claim to credibility? Apparently, they get some things right sometimes, some things right other times. They don't really talk about Nintendo too often. They talk about Xbox mostly and PlayStation. So that's like another thing to me. It's kind of like okay. So I'm not sure, but like just when I think about it from like the common sense, logical perspective, which as we just discussed, Nintendo's very hard to predict sometimes. So like we can't put too much stock into all that stuff. But I feel like Prime 4 from that perspective does make a lot of sense. And then we also factor in that Kiwi Talks is indicating that it is going to be there. I do think we have contrasting kind of stories. So where do we stand on this? Is Prime 4 gonna be in the Switch 2 Direct? Is it not gonna be? What do we think?
I think it'll be there. So from what I understand, this guy Xtasis is pretty reliable. On the Reddit Gaming Leaks and Rumors sub, they have like a tier system to if people are credible or not. He's a tier 2 on there, which is generally favorable. Nate the Hate being like a 1, Puro being a 1. So he's pretty reliable. But I've seen this name pop up more and more in the past few months, usually relating to like release dates. Like I think he leaked the Indiana Jones PS5 release date, maybe Forza release date, stuff like that.
Okay.
Maybe some presentation dates as well. I'm not sure how much he's done with Nintendo, and this is more specific too of like, okay, this game's gonna be in this showcase. I don't want to believe him. Maybe I should, but I really just don't want to believe him because, as you said, logic would indicate why haven't they showed Prime 4 yet? You know, it's got to be at the Switch 2 thing.
And if this Direct this week is only a mini, then
it'd be weird for Prime 4 to be a mini showcase. Yeah, I mean, we can't predict Nintendo. Maybe there's more reason to why they haven't shown it yet for Switch 1 if it is only a Switch 1 game.
Or maybe they want more time to be able to build it into a proper Switch 2 title.
I feel like they've had enough time though. Right?
Yeah, I feel like they've had enough time.
I would agree, right? We've seen evidence of playtesting since March of 2023, so I would agree, but we don't know for certain.
Yeah. I hope he's wrong.
In my mind, I don't see how this game isn't a cross-gen game to some extent. At this point, even if it is in the Switch 1 Direct this week, it's not coming out before Switch 2. Like,
I mean, maybe it is. Switch 2 coming out in June, Metroid Prime 4 in May.
No, there's no way.
I just can't imagine they would come out 2 months after the second trailer. We like barely know anything actually about this game.
They did the same thing with Tears of the Kingdom, though.
That is true, but I feel like that's an easier game to do that with because people are just going to buy that, and they kind of wanted to keep that a secret.
Had that 2 months.
It had more teasers also.
It was the only game we cared about for 2 to 3 months for marketing. Metroid Prime 4 would be heavily marketed.
So in terms of hype, it's their biggest franchise that they have, pretty much, in terms of like hardcore Nintendo fan hype. Like, you really can't do much more than show off another Zelda game. And just the fact that there is one. I just don't think Metroid's in the spot where doing that would be a good idea. Maybe they do it, but I just don't feel like it would. I feel like the game's probably done to where they could release it then. But I feel like if they were going to do that, they probably released it last year when they kind of needed a few more games to fill in their lineup.
Last year kind of sucked. I'm gonna be real.
Yeah, it wasn't great.
Like yes, there were games every month, but the games, like me, just being totally frank, like the games were not as good as prior years. Like,
I mean, I'm a
playable, sure, but
I'm a massive Nintendo fan. Always have been. I don't own a Switch right now because I don't feel like the games that have been coming out for the last year have been worth buying another Switch for.
I'm kicking you.
I'm just waiting for Switch 2.
No, I'm kicking you.
That's insane.
That's blasphemous words you just said. I mean, I played on PS5 more last year because
I have a PS5.
Yeah,
I had games that I wanted to play on that system. I didn't feel the need to go out and spend $350 for like 1 or 2 games that I wanted to play. Like, I was good. I was fine.
I mean, it's just because Nintendo's in a down year because they're transitioning,
right.
and that's totally fine. That I don't think
fine.
It's not an insult to Nintendo. It's just the natural flow of things. But with that in mind, right? Like, I do think about Metroid Prime 4. I even think about Pokemon Legends ZA. Like, I find it very curious that it's coming out towards the fall. Like, I think they could have come out with a game sooner. And personally, like, just my take on this, and I've went over this in a few different videos. Like, if you look at Nintendo's sales numbers, the later into the generation they go, it's not just hardware, but software sales are trending, and yet trending downwards. Like, yes, games can still sell well if they come out now, but their potential is a little bit less as we progress. And so you look at games like Legend of ZA, like Prime 4, then Nintendo probably wants to sell pretty well, right? Waiting this long to only have Switch 1 versions for them doesn't seem like a smart business move. Especially Metroid, because, Bo, I think you were talking about the other day, right? Like, this might be their most expensive title ever made. Because not only have they worked in it for a very long time, they've hired a lot of really talented people, but because it's in Texas, which apparently I didn't know this, but apparently it's one of the most expensive places to develop.
Yeah. I mean, Legends ZA, Game Freak gonna Game Freak. I could see that just being a Switch 1 game, but it'll still benefit from coming out after the Switch 2. Prime 4, given its prolonged development period, if they want that game to sell better than any other Metroid game, just put it on Switch 2. Even if there's not like a ton of enhancements like we're hoping for, even if it's just a basic port, literally just having it in the Switch 2 Direct, having a box that says Switch 2 on it, and making it a launch title, or even near launch, would help the sales of that game. If it's just a Switch 1 game, people will kind of forget about it, I feel like.
I feel like any game that comes out after the Switch 2 launches should have some sort of version on Switch 2. Like, even if it's just a simple resolution increase, like, I feel like there has to be something. You can't just launch a game, like a big profile game, on for Switch 1 and then be like, yeah, the Switch 2 version's the exact same. Like, I feel like that doesn't go over well. It doesn't excite fans. People who are buying the Switch 2 then are going to be like, well, I just don't really care about that game as much then. It just seems like something that wouldn't. And plus, Retro Studios is the type of company that would, like, the developers themselves would want to make a Switch 2 version. They're all about the graphics. Like, gameplay, obviously, they make incredible games with some of the highest reviewed games of all time, with, like, the original Metroid. Or Metroid Prime, I mean. Very, very high reviewed games. Obviously, they're great at that. But the other thing they're equally great at is pushing hardware and having incredible visuals on every system they put out. And I can't see them just being like, Switch 2 doesn't excite us. Something with 10 times the power, roughly, of a Switch 1, we're not going to do anything with that. We're just going to leave it as is.
The other argument is, like I said, if we're only getting Direct Mini next week, in my eyes, or this week, like Thursday, there's no way Prime 4 is there.
The game needs a blowout.
Like, to me, it's either it's in the Switch 2 Direct, assuming it's a mini, right? If it's a general, that changes things, right? But assuming it's a mini, it's either in the Direct next week, or it's not, and it's taking longer for whatever reason.
It could just be a really good mini, though.
Honestly, I think it could be in both. I don't see why they couldn't have a blowout for the gameplay in the Switch 1 Direct, and then just talk more about the visuals themselves during the Switch 2 Direct as part of a segment where they talk about enhanced versions of games coming to Switch 2.
What were you gonna say, Josie?
I think the only way I can see them not having it here to, like, give this guy some credibility, who said also he like that means that he's not 100% sure, right, if this is actually going to happen, but I can see them maybe doing this as almost a holiday release, and maybe having a bigger blowout at another point in the year. That's where fair. It isn't a launch title for the Switch 2, but it is cross-generational. Because at that point, they've sold a couple Switch 2s, they have the excitement there, and they can build the marketing to last a while. And, like, you know, like, not to say anything bad on Metroid, but if Metroid is the only launch title with the Switch 2, it's not going to sell very well. Because Nintendo fans need, like, a Mario or a Zelda. And we've seen that, like, time and time again. And I just feel like a Prime 4 is such a good release, but it's more of a hardcore release that it wouldn't get, like, a lot of people through the door. It'd get all the people who are already going to buy it through the door. You know? All the people who bought a Wii U.
Yeah, I mean, I think the argument about Prime 4 being a launch title, it's less about helping Switch 2 sell and more so about helping Metroid sell. And so people who think the Switch 2 would sell regardless of what they put out there, that's kind of like the thinking behind it. And there is, like, the little bit of, like, oh, can Metroid have its Breath of the Wild moment where it does reach that higher level? But the thing is, it doesn't have to be a launch title to reach that higher level, right? Like,
right.
No.
Yeah, like they could wait 6 months, right, and just find the right time to totally maximize. And, you know, if Prime 4 is available in that first year, it still has a great opportunity to pick up on that launch hype.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, I mean,
maybe.
it's like, because we talk about, you know, like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, that wasn't a launch title, but, like, that has sold insanely well, and just all Switch 1 or Switch year 1 games, like Mario Odyssey was crazy and stuff like that. So, and Xenoblade actually sold really well that year too, right?
Best-selling Xenoblade game,
right?
Yeah.
So it's like that could go into it as well, and that was a holiday release. So I just, like, I could really see it being a later in the release year. And if that's the case, then yeah, maybe it isn't here. But I do feel like just because so many people want it and there's so much stock in it, putting it in the Switch 1 Direct and showing the gameplay and then just literally being like maybe in the Switch 2 Direct being like, okay, Metroid Prime is also going to have a version for Switch 2 and it's going to look maybe like this and show a screenshot. Maybe don't do the whole blowout for it, but that and we get a release date or something like that, I can kind of see happening. Just to give a little bit of credence to the
I'm in the bargaining stage of my grief here. Like I'm like, all right,
Yeah,
listen,
hey.
it doesn't have to be a launch window. Just tell me something. Just tell me it exists again. You know? Yeah,
You do have confirmation that it's coming out this year, right?
Yeah.
currently
It doesn't get delayed.
right.
So,
It is currently slated.
I
for
mean,
2025.
Nintendo is so weird with that too, where they're like, we will show it by this time, and it's like, okay, they're gonna show it on that last day of that time. Like it could be a December game.
Yeah.
Or around
Possibly. Yeah.
That could be a. I mean, maybe we don't see it in the next 2 Directs, but then like a June showcase, they do a big blowout. Yeah.
Right, or like a game specific Direct, like they've done with so many.
Metroid Direct, yeah.
Bro, what if Thursday is a Metroid Prime 4 Direct?
Metroid Prime Direct in mid-April, you get Prime 2 and 3 in there, perfect.
That would be crazy of them. That would be super wild of them to do that.
I think for me, right, like just look, because we essentially have two contrasting rumors, right? Like theoretically both can apply, but they're basically like kind of opposite ends here. On one hand, we have someone who has a history of communicating with different Retro Studios developers. Like clearly he's well connected. He doesn't have a history of providing rumors and stuff, but also he's a fairly professional, fairly credible person. So if he says something, the natural inclination is to assume he's not lying, right? And so it's conceivable he has heard something from Retro Studios developers or contacts. So I find the story to be believable. But of course, believable from that perspective. Some people might not find it believable that he's saying that Prime 4 is going to be so amazing that's going to blow everything else out of the water. But like for me, I see that and I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be like so like Breath of the Wild levels of hype, but Metroid Prime 4. Like that's kind of like how I look at it, right? But then I have this other person saying, "Nah, it's not giving me the Direct. Screw you. You can die." Like that's kind of like so. I'm
crushed.
I'm all the way up here, and this other person's like, "No, you stay on the ground where you belong." Like I don't. It impacts my emotions, right? But at the same time, like, I remember we go back to June last year, and arguably one of the most credible Nintendo leakers there ever have been. Pioro kind of told us that the June Direct was going to be mid, right? What happened? It wasn't mid. It was actually one of the best Directs we had in a very long time. And it included Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. Why? Because it's not that Pioro was full of it. It's just, well, I mean, he was a little full of it in that way because I think he didn't really want to present his cards. But basically, he just didn't know what was going to be in there. He just knew just a small couple things and assumed that was probably most of it. And he was wrong for making that assumption. Otherwise, he's pretty reliable. Point is, though, Nintendo might just be really good at keeping their cards close to their chest here, right? And so, you know, it made the case that really no one actually knows, save for like some very, very few select people at internal Nintendo that knows how this Direct is truly going to go down.
Yeah, I feel like putting too much stock into any leaker that isn't Nate or Pioro is not a super realistic thing. Like, you know, we don't know this guy's track record. Apparently he's sort of credible, but it's like as credible as like the Silex Hunter leaker person. Like, you know, I just don't see it.
There's a chance, but that's all it is.
Their announcements for Switch 2 have not been leaked in terms of games. Like, even when we knew about the reveal trailer, we didn't know about Mario Kart. We didn't know Mario Kart was going to be in that.
Yeah.
We didn't know what was going to be in that. There's some people saying there wasn't going to be a single game in there.
Yeah, I think even Nate was like not sure. He was like, I don't know if there's going to be any games in this. And then there was Mario Kart. And yeah, I mean, the fact that we're a week away now from the Direct and
nothing.
I mean, we can speculate some things, but there's been no concrete leaks. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely. Hopefully, they got on top of all the leaks. Maybe Puro doesn't have access to this or whatever. And
he's been very quiet. He hasn't said anything about even the Direct this week yet.
Yeah,
I agree with you, Andres, that like nobody knows what's going to happen right now other than Nintendo themselves for the most part.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's the most important thing, right? Like, I think sometimes, like, rumors and leaks are fun. I mean, obviously I cover them a lot, right? But we until we see Nintendo's vision, I think we should, reserve our judgment, because maybe they're picking just the best route for everything, right? They probably want Metroid Prime 4 to be more successful than any of us. So, they're doing what they can to ensure the best case scenario. So we'll see on that. But we got more to discuss here. So Insider Gaming Online put out an article. Bo, I think you covered this today, right?
Yeah.
And there said a few things. One, from GDC, some people told them that the console's coming out in June, which isn't too crazy. Goes against my May 15th theory, but again, that was a theory. So, if it's wrong, it's fine.
How dare you be wrong, Andre?
How dare I have a
Discourse.
theory? How dare I? Or your May 22nd theory. How dare you have a theory, right? Which, by the way, neither are confirmed to be incorrect yet. We'll see. This is just one report, right? But yeah, so they're reporting a June release according to some people they heard from at GDC, and that there's going to be a 3-phase sort of launch plan according to the software. And when I read this, I was kind of like thrown off. Like it didn't sit right with me. Where first wave is basically just first party titles, second wave is third party, and then in the holiday it's games. Right?
The third phase of this, I was confused when I was making my video. I'm like, what? The third phase will be games in the holiday period. What do you mean? Because the second phase is just... the second phase is games in October, November.
Right. So
that is the holiday period. What do you mean?
Right.
I don't know. That is.
It's a weird sentence.
Yeah.
Cooked up here.
To be honest with you, and a lot of this is, I'm going to be frank, a lot of this is biased because I still want to believe in my May 15th theory, right? So I want to write this whole thing off just because I don't want to be wrong. But, like reading that part on the games, I also kind of just want to write it off. I mean, this is a report from people, from some devs they heard from at GDC, which to me says they also don't know the full story. They don't know the whole picture. So I still take this with a grain of salt as well.
Yeah. I mean, these could be indie devs, and Nintendo's not going to share their
Right.
launch plans with indies right now. I don't think.
Like, didn't the article also include that most devs didn't have any like development kits? Like,
It was that they
Yeah.
would get them in June, like around
Yeah.
launch day.
But that sounds like what indies would be dealing with.
Yeah.
But like Ubisoft and EA and they have dev kits. There's no
Bro,
way they don't.
I bet
have.
Microsoft has dev kits.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I am
Microsoft's gonna have launch
100%
games,
confident that there will be third-party games, if not on the... I mean, probably on launch day, almost certainly on launch day, but definitely during that launch window. Yeah, I don't... Maybe it will launch in June, but I don't believe at all, to be honest, this whole three-pronged approach or whatever, three-phase approach. I just think it's just going to be games. It's going to be third-party games. It's going to be first-party games.
I do
Remember-
think I made a video a week ago talking about I titled it like Switch 2 will have too many games or something, which sounds ridiculous. But the idea that so many third parties want to get on this thing and have all their games available immediately, it's the most hyped console of all time, that there might be fear of there being literally too many games in year one, too many similar games. You think of all the Final Fantasy ports, Persona ports,
Sure.
Metaphor, all that. All of the Microsoft stuff, I think they'll be bringing everything over, which is a lot.
Yeah.
So maybe this kind of leads into that of like, okay, Nintendo really wants launch to be first party, maybe a couple other things. Switch had Bomberman and like Skylanders at launch. But then maybe in the holiday, you get more of a focus on third parties, like we saw in 2017 with Doom and Skyrim, actually. But there's just no way, like, there's going to be no third-party games at launch. We'll get something. Like Sea of Thieves is one I bet will be there.
Oh, yeah.
Or like Forza,
I bet there's also going to be some like kind of crazy one that we're all like, how is this running on the system? Like,
Right.
Grand Theft Auto 6.
there's no way. It's just, I mean,
No.
maybe.
Well,
That's
Maybe,
the point. You're like, no way, but that would be the no way moment, right?
I'm thinking like Elden Ring, but yeah, that'd be cool.
We'd be lucky to get GTA 5 at this point.
no,
Still
we
waiting
can
on it.
run GTA 5.
I expect
No, I mean the Switch could run GTA 5.
Yeah.
They just don't seem to be wanting to do it.
GTA 6 would be literally insane, and in chat they said Call of Duty, which would also be crazy. But that could I
Call
could
of
see stuff
Duty,
like
I could
that.
definitely
Totally.
see.
we know for a fact Call of Duty has to come because they have a contractual agreement for the next 10 years.
I mean,
I wouldn't be surprised if Black
It's
Ops
legally
6 gets
binding.
pushed out, and then also the new game that's coming out this year comes day and date.
I agree. I mean, COD is still on PS4, so
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
should be fine
Yeah.
on Switch 2.
Yeah, I think I could see that like really like some types of games like that shown off in this direct, to be honest, just for them to be like, this is our Skyrim moment, from the first one.
What about that Oblivion remake?
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah, that could
The
work.
timing is very close because
True.
supposedly the thing's getting announced in April, possibly even releasing.
Apparently,
in
yeah.
April.
Apparently, it's releasing in April. So I'm just like, when is
Right.
that going to be announced? What are you
Yeah.
talking about?
So I
What?
mean,
That's
it's
crazy.
probably not a Switch 2 launch title, right? But like maybe
Mhm.
it's still coming out pretty early on, right? Like I mean, at the end of the day, it is a Microsoft published release, right? So
Yeah.
obviously it
I mean-
should be prioritized on Nintendo, but for it to still be announced, I think that's not too much of a stretch. And it's Oblivion remake. Like how
Right.
crazy is that actually?
Doom: The Dark Ages is 100% coming. I don't believe for a second that they haven't been working on the Switch 2 version of this game side by side with the original game for at least most of the production, like they
Mhm.
were with Doom Eternal on Switch. So I assume that they've been already working on this game for a while, and if it's going to come as soon as the Switch does, very very close in that launch window, if not day one.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And then also like day one, I kind of think Elden Ring makes a ton of sense.
Ooh,
It's
Yeah.
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 No,
Are you
no.
talking?
I
Your
think she
camera's
froze.
Your camera's
Good
frozen.
Lord.
I don't know if your microphone's still
oh
there.
my lord. What did I need
It was
to
going
reset the
so
damn
well for
router?
so
Yeah,
long.
no, it went on for a good while. Like you had a
Yeah.
great run.
Yeah.
Well, now
What
I
were
can
you saying,
retire, I guess. I can totally see Elden Ring being
Yeah.
a launch title because they can capitalize on the fact that here's our Nintendo games that you've come to love, but also, for the people who maybe aren't as into that, we have all these third-party games that are definitely
Right.
coming, and to show you proof of that, here's Elden Ring, this really hyped up game,
They do need to
Yeah.
show us that there's going to be more support for third parties, like the types of games that we didn't typically see on Switch One. Like, because we've
Mhm.
seen Doom on Switch One, we've seen some sports games, we've seen like Skyrim, we've seen these kind of games, but they need to show us something that's like third party on Switch 2 is going to be different. It's going to be better. It's going to look closer to those better versions. There's going to be more of them. There's going to be more series that you didn't see on Switch 1 that you're going to see on Switch 2. More day and date releases, things like that. Like, they need to show us that third party support's going to be better, because I do genuinely believe it is going to be a lot better.
Yeah.
Because I think it's going to be a lot easier to develop for Switch 2 than Switch 1.
I almost wonder if the Switch 2 Direct will be like almost entirely first party, and then maybe we get a partner showcase for Switch 2, like late April, sometime early May. I think that could maybe make sense because there's so many ports that are rumored. There's so many of them.
Mhm.
I think we
On
could
top
get a
of stuff
second
coming later in
event,
the
but-
year, like I'm looking at like Ninja Gaiden 4. That's probably going to come to Switch 2, I imagine. Another Microsoft game, funnily enough.
Right.
But I think a partner showcase could actually make sense for Switch 2.
I agree, but I don't think that means that the Switch 2 Direct that we know about would be mainly first. I mean, it may be
There's
mainly
just
first
so
party,
many
but there's
potential
definitely going to
third
be
parties
third
I think-
parties there, right?
Right. I think if there's third parties at the Switch 2 Direct, it should be new stuff like Persona 6,
That's
or,
fair.
or even like Final Fantasy 9 remake, which has been rumored forever. But like 7
The
remake,
big stuff.
like I don't know, it's a port, or like even like AC Shadows. I think someone said the Division is coming over. It's like, is Nintendo really going to
Yeah.
show the Division in a Switch 2? I don't know. Not in the
That'd be
big
awesome.
reveal.
A new Resident Evil game.
I do agree
Resident
that
Evil
there's going
9.
to be
Cooking up.
enough of them that they can definitely have a second presentation and just have the biggest, most
Yeah.
kind of mind-blowing ones in that April 2nd Direct to show off what third parties are going to do. But yeah, there's definitely not going to have time to show off everying. And
Every
they're going to have,
single port. 20
they'll
Ubisoft
probably
games.
have a June Direct. They'll have, obviously, a ton of stuff will get announced during the Keeleys, during the summer. So Summer Games Fest, obviously, is going to be big for Switch 2.
Yeah.
I do think there's going to be several big third parties in that April 2nd Direct to show off what we're dealing with here with third parties this time around.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the fact that, like, even with Switch 1, they kind of had to lean a little bit more on ports because of how much less powerful it was, and also
Right.
a lot of developers weren't willing to support it immediately. But even then, I mean, they
Yeah.
showed Skyrim. They had the EA guy come out and just there was like a PNG of FIFA up on the screen just to like show the support. I mean, maybe we see that same thing, but for Madden, because Madden never came to Switch. But I think EA actually said they want to bring it to Switch 2. So it'll be important for them to show like this is how third-party support's going to be on Switch 2, but also like why it's different
Right.
than Switch 1 was.
Well, in that January presentation for Switch, they had like a whole like splash screen of different logos from different developers.
Yeah.
It was like 30 of them or something ridiculous. So they'll probably do something similar to that again. Just be like, look at all the third parties.
Every logo. I
Just
remember
everything,
seeing
yeah.
CD Projekt Red's logo on there and just being like, excuse
What?
me? And then 2 years later, we got Witcher 3, which
Blew
not sure if
my
I'm going to play it
mind.
on Switch, but still really cool.
No.
I mean, I think
Right.
Cyberpunk would be one that could definitely
Yeah.
come to Switch 2.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good version of that
I
game
feel
on
like
Switch too.
Cyberpunk has a pretty good chance. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know, like I'm personally more excited for the newer games just because I've kind of played the other ones already. I mean, I guess I haven't picked up Monster Hunter Wilds yet, so like I guess I would actually be pretty hyped for that. You know what's interesting? You guys heard about the so apparently there's this rumor going around that the Switch 2 is going to have, I mean, we already know it's going to be an LCD, 8 inches, 1080p resolution, right? But apparently it's also going to have 120 hertz with HDR and VRR. And so what's interesting about this is that they Switch 2 in handheld mode could theoretically run games at 40 frames per second. Which might be kind of nice. Like, you know, if they can't hit the 60, but you know, you don't need to always go down to 30, 40 might be kind of neat, right? Like imagine like, all right, so we can't enjoy Monster Hunter Wilds at 60 on Switch 2, right? But you know, 40 might be kind of like a nice, you know, compromise.
I would love this, but I cannot see Nintendo doing this. 120 hertz VRR screen just doesn't seem like something Nintendo would do, but I would love it. I also think it's interesting because you obviously would need that to just be like a separate mode, because you still need support people docking to a TV that doesn't support 120 hertz, so you can't use 40 FPS on a 60 hertz screen. It's just not going to work. So it would be weird. HDR is something I definitely think Nintendo will support just in general. I don't feel like the LCD is going to support it, just because you're not really going to get much out of HDR from a normal LCD panel unless you have something like mini LED display, which is very expensive. Nintendo tends, except on the Switch OLED, that's kind of the one outlier. But typically, Nintendo cheaps out really hard on their screens for every handheld console they've ever made, pretty much. So I don't see them putting a top-of-the-line 120 hertz VRR mini LCD or mini LED display with great HDR. But it's the console supporting VRR, if you have a certain monitor, would be very much in line with PS5, Xbox Series X. That's an easy thing to do. And supporting HDR would be very easy. But in handheld mode, I don't see that happening. It would be great. It'd be amazing. But I don't know. I mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a 120 hertz screen, though. They could do like the Steam Deck the Steam Deck OLED's a 90 hertz screen, but it supports various different refreshes that don't necessarily divide evenly into 90. So it does support 40 hertz. So then maybe they could use a screen like that. But even still, it really doesn't seem like something Nintendo would do. Like, I'm not even sure if we're gonna get like 60 FPS and 30 FPS graphics modes in Switch 2 games. Like, maybe third-party games, definitely, but first-party games, I don't know. And then, like, also them supporting 40 hertz on top of that, which is something a lot of third-party developers are just now beginning to support on the bigger consoles. It would be very out of step for Nintendo, but it'd be welcome. It would be welcome for sure. I'd love that.
Yeah.
I cannot realistically see this happening.
Yeah, if they want to keep the price at $400, just any bells and whistles that they can save for the Switch 2 Pro or OLED, whatever,
right?
Just strip it out. Make this thing as cheap as possible, get as many people in, and then later on, maybe we see all these features.
Yeah, I guess I'm
Pro?
just looking at it from the perspective of, well, one, again, rumor, so, you know.
Yeah.
Right, we don't know, right? But
I'm taking a truckload of salt with this one. I'll say that.
Right. I guess I just like that it would really place a nice argument. It's very easy to argue. It's a lot, or rather, I should say, it's easier to argue that this is not really much of a downgrade in comparison to the OLED, right? Like if you have 120 hertz, VRR, HDR, 1080p, 8 inches, like those are all things this screen would have over, the OLED screen, right? Because I know some people are like, "Oh man, not an OLED. That's a big mistake."
True,
right?
but I mean, they've had better versions of their devices, especially handhelds, and then the new device came out that had several drawbacks. For example, like the DSi XL or something versus like the standard 3DS. Obviously, the screen was much, much smaller on the standard 3DS than it was on the DSi XL. You had to wait for the 3DS XL model to get similar screen sizes there. So I definitely wouldn't be shocked if in several ways the screen is just straight up worse on this than the Switch OLED. But I would be shocked if it was worse than the original screen. I would hope it's a nicer LCD than we saw there.
Yeah. I mean, maybe at least HDR.
I would hope for HDR support.
Doesn't have to be
at least
120
for
hertz. Doesn't have to have
console.
VRR. Could just be 60 hertz, which I mean, it would kind of has to be at least 60 hertz, right?
Oh yeah.
It's gonna
Imagine
be 20
if it
hertz.
wasn't.
Oh my god,
That'd be so bad.
That would be
we'd-
terrible.
For those that don't know, like basically hertz equates to the frame rate. Like so, yeah. If it's only 30 hertz, then it can only show 30 frames per second.
Right.
So yeah,
Breath
at
of
least
the Wild
60.
4K, only in 30 FPS. What's the point?
I don't know, man.
Still no
not-
anti-aliasing. It's just a higher resolution.
Yeah,
That would be terrible.
$70.
Yep, they upgrade the price.
Yeah, we're joking, right? Like GameCube had 60 FPS games. Don't worry.
I mean, the NES had 60 FPS games. We've had 60 FPS for like basically forever. It depends on your the developer's chosen like target.
Yeah. Josie, I don't know if you're there.
I am.
Hello there.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Thanks. I'm just gonna be a me for the rest of this, I think.
That's all right.
That's fair.
Yeah, we're actually not too far off from ending. We're getting pretty much close to Q and A. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. I don't know, man. See, it's getting late for me. Like I'm running
QA
on
would be
fumes.
quality assurance.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. QA, right? Q&A, yes. Anyway, we're almost there. But how do we feel specifically about the June release timing of Switch 2? Like, do we think that this is the ticket? Do we still hold some belief in the May release theories? Where do we stand?
I think all will become clear on Thursday. If there's a game dated for March, or for May, sorry. If there's a first-party game dated for May, then we can write off that, I think. But also maybe not. The fuck knows with Nintendo. Pardon me, sorry. But
Yeah, you're good.
I think June or May, it's fine. Either thing,
yeah.
it's like whatever. It's so close that like I'm not gonna be upset. If it's even late June, it's like okay, I'll be playing it in 3 months.
I'm
That's
not
still
actually
so close.
family friendly, by the way, so
I
it's
know.
not. It's not. I mean, I try to stay relatively clean, but you know
Right.
that there's
We
no
try to
hardcore-
keep the ads on, but sometimes in the heat of the moment,
It's
it
fine.
slips up.
May or June, whatever. It's all soon in my mind.
Yeah.
If it's June,
Yeah.
they better have some games in May though.
Right.
There, which could be
That would
when
be a long
Planet
drought.
Robobot Triple Deluxe,
Yeah.
could slot right in there.
Yeah. Prime 2
can
and
see
3
several
could
games.
also like both of
Yeah.
those things could come out.
I'm very 50-50 on May versus June. It could really be either one at this point.
Now, if you say July, we're gonna have an issue. We're having an issue if it's
Yeah.
July. But June 30th, that's
It'd be a
fine.
nice birthday present, but I don't want to wait that long.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not giving up on my May theory until
I think
we
15th
have-
just has too much going on, man.
it's
I agree on May. I think even May, what would it be, May 8th? I think May 8th is likelier than the 15th just because there's so much else happening that day.
I mean, I just think May makes sense.
Yeah. Sometime in May.
It's just a lot that that is just very peculiar. On the flip side, we said that about September Switch 2 reveal, right? And
Yeah,
didn't mean shit. So
that was just a rough month.
yeah, it
It's
was
so
tough.
quiet. Ugh.
It was tough. Yeah.
How's it
so-
feel, Andres? How does it feel as a content creator that we're almost through this hell? I mean, you've been making Switch 2 videos for way longer than I was, because I used to be anti-Switch 2. But even me, having been talking about it since the beginning of last year, because I thought it would be announced last September, even I feel like I'm about to be enlightened. So I can't even imagine how you feel.
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to help Josie get back in. Yeah. How do I feel? It's kind of the thing. Like, I've been doing this for so long. Like, I don't really know. Like, this is just my normal, right? This is just my normal. I will say that I find it kind of cool that I've been talking like about like the Ocarina of Time remake theories for a long time. I've been talking about the Metroid Prime 4 Switch 2 version for a long time. Like, we're talking about a couple years, right? And both these things kind of tie into, like, you know, I think what's the big things about Switch 2. And neither are confirmed yet, right? It's not even really about the fact that they are right or wrong. It doesn't really matter. But it's interesting that, like, I had these theories, and I don't want to pretend like I'm the only person that had the theory, right? But I definitely have been talking about them, and I feel like I've added to the conversation for both for a long time. And now it seems like that's just kind of, you know, like everyone kind of is, not everyone, but a lot of people now buy into these things, right? Like, I'm watching like discussion videos where like, oh yeah, Ocarina of Time remake, like, okay. But a year ago, I see these same people were not talking about that. So it's just kind of like, it's
Finally.
it's just kind of like a lot of us seem to be on the same page on a lot of stuff. And so that is interesting. Hold on a second. Let me see what's going on with Josie. She's having technical issues.
I had no idea. News to me.
All good. Yeah. Yeah, Josie's having technical issues. She will have to say goodnight for the evening. If we still had her on for a little bit, make sure to check her out. Her channel is linked in the description below. Yeah. Give me a second.
No problem.
Chris in chat said the Thursday Direct is a hoax. We'll see.
We
I don't
will
think so.
see. I mean, if there's no Switch 1 Direct, Switch 1 news has to come sometime, guys. So
Yeah. I just think, like, no one, like, I don't know. Nate the Hate didn't have to say anything. It's the fact that he
No.
came out and confidently was like, yeah, it's on Thursday. You know? Why put your credibility on the line if you're not, like, 100% confident in it, you know? Like,
I mean, I think it's happening.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, now I'm fully focused. So yeah, man, we're just at a point, like, there's so many questions. And what's interesting, like, the last time we got a general was in June. And I think that's another kind of interesting angle to this conversation. It's almost like, as a content creator, like, we haven't really been given that much to really chew on
right.
for a very long time. Like, we've gotten to little things, right? But you can only say so much about Nintendo Alarmo and Sound Clock, right? Or the music app. Like, so we're in for a very good helping of Nintendo real news. And so that's gonna be fun. That's gonna be refreshing. So, you know, I'm looking forward to it, and I really don't know what's gonna happen after April 2nd. Like, April 2nd is just gonna be a new life.
It's a whole new world at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're in for a revolution, pun intended. So, yeah.
Yeah, and for me, as somebody who doesn't do YouTube anymore as on my own channel, but I still occasionally do work with you, Andres. We've made several graphics videos. That's the kind of content I like to make these days. And that kind of content is about to get a lot more interesting. So even though I don't do YouTube full time anymore, I still love doing YouTube stuff. Obviously, I do the podcast, but I want to get back into doing more videos, and the Switch 2 is a great opportunity for that. So, very excited to see what kind of technical ambitions we see and what kind of content I can make off of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, you got your desk.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
So I
Yeah.
mean, it's what's been holding me back.
Yeah.
That the complete lack of interesting technical things to talk about with Switch.
Yeah. I will say that I think like we go back to this like Metroid Prime for a rumor of it not being in the direct. Like, I talked about it earlier, right? Like we go from one rumor that seems pretty credible that it's going to be in the direct and it's going to be an amazing thing versus it's not going to even be there. Like that's a huge swing, right? Like it's not like, oh, hey, it's going to be there, but it's not going to be that big of a deal. It's just not there. Like that's, that's an upsetting swing. But obviously, they're both rumors, so we'll see what happens. We don't know what's going to happen. But like I've been waiting to talk about Metroid Prime 4 for such a long time, like even longer than the whole Switch 2 conversation. Like the wait, like I think that's a whole other angle to this, and maybe a bigger angle for me personally. Like yes, we've been waiting a long time for Switch 2, but we're waiting a much longer time for Metroid Prime 4. And so if we get another delay of some kind, right? Like that's just, it's kind of, I'm in general very optimistic and positive. And like I said earlier, I think Nintendo has a plan. I think they're going to do the very best to maximize whatever it is they got going on. And until we see what their message is on the issue, I think we should reserve our judgment. But if Metroid Prime 4 is not in anything in the next week or so, that's going to be a little soul-sucking for me. Because it's been such a long wait. Like, I'm not kidding you. Like, for me, like, when I hear that, oh, Metroid Prime 4 could blow everything out of the water, that's not a surprise to me necessarily. It's more like a vindication, because it's what I've kind of believed since the beginning. Like, I have that much faith in Metroid. And listen, I'm not saying people have to agree, but that's just kind of where I stand on the matter. So my hype levels for this, whenever it comes, are through the roof and beyond, pun intended. So it's gotta be soon. There's like no way.
Yeah.
How do we get 2 directs at this point and not hear about it? Like, I'm not even, listen, I don't need to come out in May or June. I don't need that. Just let me hear about the damn game.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
For me, I mean, I think I was probably on your streams 2 years ago saying I didn't think Prime 4 would be cross-gen. As time has gone on and we've gotten further and further from when this game was announced, my expectations for it have only risen. And with how much they've put into it, I just feel like there's no way they don't deliver something truly special. And especially once I became convinced it would be cross-gen, like that also just boosted my excitement for it. So like, it is gonna feel like cathartic. Like, okay, finally we see it. And listen, I know the rumor, I get it. There's no way we don't see it, man. That would be like that. It'd feel like such a misstep if we don't see it in the next 2 directs.
Right. Like, listen, if it's not in the Switch 2 Direct, okay, but that would have to mean it's in the Switch 1 Direct. Like,
Yeah,
I just don't see how it's in neither.
Like, why even show it last June if it wasn't basically
Exactly.
done? Like, I just...
Right. I mean,
it has to be showing up.
They went such a long time without sharing it because I thought they weren't going to share it until they knew they were close. Right?
Yeah.
Like, exactly. Like, I don't think we would have seen it last year if they didn't already know they were close.
I mean,
You know,
I
I
think the
think-
game was done, probably, or at least mostly done. Maybe at that point they were working on the Switch 2 version, but
And
Right.
maybe that's the delay, right? Maybe, the Switch
Yeah.
2 version is not ready and they really want it to be a good Switch 2 version because they do want it to be a big Switch 2 title. Like, that's possible, I suppose. But, by the way, I'm not expecting any announcement tomorrow. I'm not saying there won't be. What I'm saying is, like,
I
I'm
agree.
going in open-minded. Like, yes, I believe there's something is happening on Thursday, but I'm not convinced it's going to be something that's super exciting. It might be, it might not be. I'm not convinced it's going to be announced tomorrow. It might just be shadow dropped. So just word of caution.
I think I'm going to be checking Twitter tomorrow morning, but
Oh, yeah, same.
Right.
I think there is a good chance they just shadow drop it.
Right. Yeah, so like let's not freak out if nothing happens tomorrow. Like let's you can freak out on Friday. But then by that point, hey, the Switch Direct is after the weekend, so who cares? Like that's kind of where I'm at with all this. But is there anything else that's gone on in the last few days that's worth talking about before we just jump into some Q&A?
I mean, there's all the Pokemon leaks, but you already made a video on that, and also it's just like, look at these new megas that are coming, which is exciting.
Right. And by look, it's not look, it's just
look at the text of the names of what Pokemon are going to have
right.
megas. Yeah, so it's not like super interesting, I guess.
It's a little interesting. I mean, I don't think this is much of a spoiler, but like the Gen 2 starters are getting Mega Evolutions and not regional forms, which doesn't surprise me. But you know, there are people who thought there'd be regional forms, and according to these leaks, which are backed by Pyoro, by the way.
Pokemon leaker Pyoro. That's all he's done in the past like 2 months.
Yeah, it's Poke Pyoro. Yeah, Pyoro's a Pokemon now. So, anyway, let's get to some super chats, and then we'll take the live chat, and we'll wrap things up.
Cool.
So I see here Mark Russia with our super chat. Gifted my Switch. Switch 2 is a long wait. Hopefully not that long. Maybe a May or June wait. So very close.
I would say it's March, probably 3.5 months at most. We're waiting for this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, something that's I have Xenoblade Chronicles X loaded on my Switch. Haven't started it yet.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I'm surprised.
Just wait at this point.
Well, I mean, I was away at a wedding for the weekend. You know.
Yes.
I mean, it's it wasn't a long drive. It was in Fort Lauderdale. It was like an hour away from me. But we stayed at a resort. You know, we had a beach day, a pool day, and you know, it was a good time, right? Like, but then I get back and like, I mean, as a content creator, like I'm very like focused on what's before me, right? Like this is like a life-changing series of events as in terms of like as my career as a YouTuber, right? So like that's kind of like really where my priorities are at right now. Yeah. And I want to play Xenoblade Chronicles X, but it's not a new game for me. I played a great deal of Xenoblade Chronicles X on the Wii U back in 2015, and I've gone back every once in a while just to kind of fool around with it. It's not a new experience for me. But then I hear how there's a 60 FPS version, and you know, like I'm just like, all right, well,
yeah.
What if I just waited?
Even for me, I mean, I love Xenoblade, but I didn't play Xenoblade X very much on Wii U, so it is basically a new game for me, essentially. Okay. But even for me, I'm just like, well, maybe Switch 2 boost. I'm not even really that though. It's more just like there's so much else happening right now with YouTube and like getting ready for the Switch 2 Direct. Like I can't even really focus on playing a game. I have like 5 hours in it. It's good. I enjoy it. I want to play more, but I'm a little distracted right now. I wish it had come out in February, man. That would have been the perfect time for that game for me. But 10 days before Switch 2 Direct kind of distracted me, Nintendo.
Yeah, I feel like they probably spaced it out in the way they did because, well, Switch 2 is coming out in May.
Yeah, every other month.
I mean, you think about it, right? Like, I mean, I think it was just a spacing thing. Because why not come out with it in February? Because they have nothing else that they plan to release anytime soon. Like that's my take on it. But you know, Nintendo be doing Nintendo things, so it's hard to say for sure. By the way, I may still turn it on like tonight or tomorrow. It's just I think because I think the moment I start playing it, I'll just continue playing it. But I kind of know exactly how the game's going to start with the cutscene because I mean the cutscene's the same, right? Like
yeah,
it might look a little more colorful, right?
Character models look better, yeah.
Right, like, but it's the opening cutscene is the opening cutscene. I think I just don't want to sit through that 10-minute cutscene again, because I think I recently did so for my graphics comparison of this game already.
Oh,
so it's really fresh in my mind.
Well, see, and here's another thing for me too, though. Like, if we are getting a direct on Thursday, I think there's a good chance they shadow drop something, be that Prime 2 or 3, be that something else. And I'm sorry, Xenoblade, I haven't played Prime 2 and 3. I gotta get caught up on those before Prime 4 come out. So like I would have to put Xenoblade on hold anyway. So I kind of think I might just wait. It hurts me to say I'm waiting on a Xenoblade game, but there's so much else happening.
Yeah, this is also the first Xenoblade game, other than the original, that I have not bought and played day one.
But you don't
So,
have a Switch right now, so
Yeah.
no, I
You should have
don't.
bought it
Yeah.
anyway to show support. Come on.
yeah.
Facts. I mean, I'll buy it when the Switch 2 comes around, but I did suspect that there was going to be like a higher resolution, maybe 4K, 60 FPS mode when the game came on, or when the Switch 2 came out, which seems to be the case. Seems like that's going to be the case. So yeah, I'm perfectly fine waiting. Obviously, there's all that new content, but I put 200 hours into the original game. There's a tiny bit of the story that I haven't finished. And to be honest, I don't really remember a lot of the story, so it's going to be kind of new for me. But yeah, definitely not something I'm okay with waiting till Switch 2.
It'll be hard to find a gap that I can just put a 200-hour game into later this year.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, if you rush the story, it's not nearly that long. I just put way too much time into the side content.
Yeah, I like to take my time with Xenoblade, so like, I don't want to
Right,
rush
like
it.
Xenoblade
That's
is
fair.
like that's my escape
And I do think X is the best if you do just take your time and wait and like don't get just rush to get skills immediately, explore the world on foot, take in the scale.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
even from the little bit I played, just like running around doing the little nodes on the map was satisfying. So
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very fun.
Shout outs to Netweed09 who gifted another membership. I appreciate you,
Nice.
Netweed09.
the goat,
Him and Boo Mini are they're
dude,
they
Boo
are
Mini,
the,
shout
they are
out.
the stars
Once again.
of membership.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I kind of reminded of my kind of like excitement going to Xenoblade Chronicles 2. It wasn't actually that high back in 2017.
Really?
It was no, it wasn't. I remember like you talking to me like it's kind of crazy how long we've known each other, Brandon. Like I remember you like being super excited for it, and I saw it in the direct, and it kind of like just I don't know, for whatever reason the trailer just didn't hit me really well. I think it was probably not that great of a trailer to be honest.
We've
with you. I
known
look
each
back
other
on-
for like 9 years
Crazy,
at
man.
this point.
I
Yeah.
don't know what it was 9.
It's
I don't know.
definitely.
I don't
I mean,
know.
it's
I
been
don't
8
remember
years
if we
since
met in
Xenoblade
20.
2 was announced, so
It's
'Cause I
it's been maybe I barely knew you then. I don't
I'm
know.
pretty sure that I came onto the podcast before the Switch had come out, but I may be wrong about that.
I don't know.
I feel like
mean,
it was late 2016.
I mean, I created my YouTube channel in 2016. So,
it may have
yeah.
been early 2017.
yeah. But anyway, listen, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is my favorite Xenoblade game. I don't know how,
oh
but
yes,
it just
yes.
is.
It's
I
not
think-
my favorite, to be honest.
like
I think 1
get-
and 3 are better than 2.
I mean, I understand why you say that, right? I get it.
I understand why you think that, but you're wrong.
But it's just too
Not the 2v1. No.
the 2 has like a certain magic about it. It's the characters,
It's that world,
the
those characters,
story.
man. The way it
It's-
flows. Oh,
It's
music.
freaking yes, the music, Gormott seeing the giant deer titan godhead moving, like that's just crazy. It's crazy. In a great way. It's such a magical game once you get past the
It's a
initial,
very good game.
tutorial stuff. This is a subjective thing, Brandon. I know I get it, right? but I'm only saying that pointing out that it is my personal favorite Xenoblade game because for whatever reason I wasn't drawn into it immediately. I only played it because it was a Nintendo Xenoblade game. Like that was why I played it, right? Because I knew, because I love Xenoblade X, I love Xenoblade 1, so it was just one of those things where I knew I was gonna buy it and play it, right? Like basically,
Right.
like the marketing for Xenoblade 2 did not sell me on the game at all. It was just
That's
literally
fair.
the
I
prior
mean-
Xenoblade games that sold me on the game.
Right. The reason I was so hyped for it is because at the time, Xenoblade Chronicles was my favorite game ever made. So the fact that there was going to be a sequel just absolutely blew my mind. Because when we got X, I was like, "Oh, this is not a sequel."
yeah, very weird space game.
Great game, but probably the worst of the 3, in my opinion. Even though it's still amazing, it's just barely below the 1 through 3, in my opinion. But no, I would say probably 3, then 1, then 2 for me, and then X. I
I don't
think
wanna
3 is
rank
the best one.
I don't want to rank them. I
3 is
think
really
if you
close
haven't,
for me. But I have so much nostalgia. And Xenoblade 1, I tried playing on 3DS. That was the first time I played that game.
oh my gosh.
And I couldn't get into it, and then I
Oh
bought
my
it on
gosh.
on Wii U Virtual Console, or like through the Wii, whatever. And even then, I still wasn't like really feeling it. I didn't like the combat very much. So it wasn't until after
Right.
Xenoblade 2 that I actually went back and played Xenoblade 1. And I still think like the characters and story in that are really good. The world's cool. I don't love the gameplay though. Xenoblade 2's
I
gameplay I
feel
think
the
is genuinely
same
just
way.
so much fun. Like I really enjoy doing the chain attacks and everything in that.
Oh, it's so good.
Xenoblade 1, like
Poetry in motion.
Yeah.
I do think that
Xenoblade
in terms
1's
of
just
pure
a lot
gameplay,
simpler.
Xenoblade 2 is better than 1.
Yeah.
But I think the full package of 1, in my opinion, is better than 2. But I also didn't play 1 till Definitive Edition. I had watched at the time 2. I was so into. I don't know if you guys know who Chuga Conroy is, but he did a Let's Play of Xenoblade back in the day. It was very, very big for him. I was following him at the time. I've been watching him for years before then, and so that game showed me like that video games could have just as good or better like stories and narratives with as many twists and turns as like a feature-length movie or better. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize stories could be this good in games. And since then, I've played a lot of games and watched a lot of games that have similar quality stories. But at the time, I was not used to that, so it was a very big deal for me. And then I actually played the game with Definitive Edition. I was like, the combat's not as good as 2, not as good, or X. Honestly, X is probably better combat too than 1. I do think 1 has the worst combat in the series.
Yeah. I think 3 is the best combat. I will say that.
Yeah.
Very refined. Having all
So
the characters
good.
on Switch. Dude, it's so good.
Yeah.
That's why, like, for me,
Torna is also amazing. I love
dude,
Torna.
Torna's combat's awesome.
The
also
fact that you can
battle
like
theme,
get health back by
Yeah.
doing certain moves correctly.
Yeah.
So good. Like
By
a
the
fighting
way,
game.
like I think I just want to take this moment to point out that we have essentially 7 Xenoblade games,
Yeah,
It's awesome.
it's
right?
great.
It's so
those,
great.
For those that don't get it, it's not just Xenoblade 1, 2, 3, and X. It's also Future Connected, which is in
Right.
Xenoblade 1 Definitive Edition, Future Redeemed, which is in Xenoblade Chronicles 3's DLC, and Torn of the Golden Country, which is in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 DLC, but also has its own physical release. Like each of the for those that want to say, oh, those aren't full-on games. I mean, listen, if a
You can buy
Pokemon
Torna
game,
on itself.
like I mean, yeah, you can buy by itself. But these adventures can each last you like 20 to 40 hours, which by the way, like there are games that are 20 to 40 hours, right? Like so like full on games. So they essentially are, right? They're not as long as the mainline games, but they're still they're sizable. And like I kind of excited to eventually like kind of like play 1 through 7 like at some point. And I'm trying to decide what would be the ultimate order here. Obviously X, well, here's the other thing. And this is maybe the reason why I should play X sooner than later. I don't know what there's new story stuff there, right? Like, and does that change anything about our understanding of how it fits? Because before this, the extra story stuff, like our understanding of X is that it's just kind of tangential, and that there's a really good chance that's still the case. But there are some theories out there that maybe it does relate to Future Redeemed a little bit. I don't know. Maybe I'll end up playing X tonight. I'm not sure. I've been catching up on I was reincarnated as a slime, so it's actually a pretty good anime. Yeah, it's one of those weird name animes.
Would have never expected
Right.
you to pull that anime out.
No,
You know?
Have you seen it?
No, it's just like one of those. I always see it around, on Crunchyroll
Yeah.
or like.
It's actually very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
It's very good. Like at first you might be like, I don't know if I care about like a main character that's the slime, but it's
I'm sure it's
you gotta
cute.
give it is cute, but it's also cool. Like it's cool.
Yeah.
Like it's a fun fantasy adventure with actually some pretty good combat. So, yeah, it's a good watch. There's a new season, so like for me, like with an anime, like if it's been a long time, I'll just go back and kind of rewatch them. The
Rewatch
same
it,
how I'm
yeah.
talking about how I want to kind of go through all the Xenoblade games because I've already done it. I've gone through 1 and 2 more than once. Like in preparation for 3, I replayed 1 and 2. Before getting into 3, and so now that all 7 are available, right? Like I'm probably gonna do that. But anyways, getting back to, I want to get through the super chats, then I'm gonna focus on the live chats. Where was I? That was a wonderful tangent.
Anytime I can talk about Xenoblade is a good time.
Oh yeah.
It is a good time. So Marker Show, Samus as a guest character in Star Fox or F-Zero?
F-Zero I could see. Star Fox I could also see, but less.
I can see a cameo. Like, while you're doing an R-Wing mission in Star Fox, you just see Samus's ship in the distance or something flying
like,
around.
You're not
That'd be
gonna
cool.
have a conversation with Samus, but
Yeah.
like that. Like I mean,
No, I doubt
Samus
that.
has done that. They did that with the Donkey Kong Country. I'm not sure. Was it a Tropical Freeze? I think it was. I want to say it was Tropical Freeze.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
And they're like you just see Samus's ship like flying off of a planet.
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
There's also the Samus
recall
helmet
that.
in Origami King.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
I
there's
do
the
remember
helmet.
that.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
a Donkey Kong one as well.
I think there's something in a Star Fox Command or something. Isn't there something?
There might be, but I'm not sure what we're referring to. Like I don't have
I
recollection.
don't know.
on
In
that.
Super Mario RPG, you can see Samus sleeping in a
Oh,
bed, right?
yeah.
Oh yeah, Samus is tired. She's just taking a snooze. That is interesting. Man, I'm curious if you're right about that Star Fox Command. You know what it is? I never played Command. I know Command has like
didn't
7
either.
different like endings with the story, so that's kind of like a weird thing.
Might
Yeah.
be wrong. I know. This is a deep cut. My friend has a Virtual Boy. Galactic Pinball, I know, has a Metroid reference in it.
That is
Okay.
interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man, I
That
would
might be
love
what
to
I was thinking.
try that
This is-
system.
Ocarina of Time has an R-wing inside the code.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is crazy. Like you can actually, if you like mess with it a little bit, like an R-wing can actually like see me sling flying and shooting around like in like Kokiri Forest. Anyway, to answer your question, I personally think it's more likely in a Star Fox than an F-Zero. Because in an F-Zero, it's about racing gameplay, right? So under what circumstance, unless Samus is like literally a character that you pick and play as in the game, which I feel like is unlikely. I mean, I don't want to say it's totally impossible. Because if they expand the roster, they could do something like that, right?
You could see her as like a secret character you could unlock or something.
Or
cool.
like someone that's like a reference. Like for example, there's James McLeod, right? Who's like a humanoid version of Fox's dad. And his ship is basically an R-wing. And F-Zero, so like there could be like maybe a new character that's somewhat like that. Heck, there might already be a character that's kind of like a reference to Samus as it is. There's a few like blonde racers already there, so it might be worth another look. There's a the thing is Samus wasn't always blonde either, so there's that. Like Jodie might arguably be a Samus reference from like the original Metroid, but that's I got to go back into that stuff. I'm gonna say no, but I'm just saying it's possible.
Dark Dragon of Destruction answered what I was thinking. There's an ending in Star Fox Command where Fox and Falco join the F-Zero races. That's what I was thinking of.
Okay.
Which is a cool little Easter egg ending.
Wait, say that again? I'm sorry. I missed it.
Yeah, Dark Dragon of Destruction. There's an ending in Star Fox Command on DS where Fox and Falco join the F-Zero races. That's what I was thinking of.
Yes. There are Star Fox references in F-Zero and vice versa.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of when I was thinking Samus and Command, yeah.
But anyway, to answer your question, I agree with you. To answer the question, I do agree with you, Bo, that like what seems most plausible is that like in a Star Fox game, you might just be doing some sort of mission. Because in Star Fox, there's at least more examples where gameplay slows down a little bit, right? Where maybe you could catch like a cameo of like Samus' ship flying off into the distance. The same way it happened in Donkey Kong Country. I want to say Tropical Freeze, but it's possibly returns. It's one of those two. Anyway, we got another super chat here. It's a membership. Sam Talks Games has been a member for 26 straight months. Thank you for being a member all this time, Sam. Hey man, if we're gonna get an Ocarina of Time remake, what team do you think would be doing it, and what portion of the team would be actually working on it? To be honest with you, I think it would be a collaborative effort, and I think a part of it would be legitimately the actual 3D Zelda team. Like we talk about Wind Waker HD, 3D Zelda team worked on that.
That's the last time they worked on an old game, though.
That was
a long time ago. That was a long time ago.
It was, but hear me out. Where they worked on Wind Waker HD when they were working on Breath of the Wild. And they've essentially been working the same type of Zelda engine since then. So now, presumably, moving into the next era of Zelda, they're working on something new, right? And so it might be another opportunity to kind of do a similar thing they did with Wind Waker and revisit other older style Zeldas and see how their newer engine applies to those.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think it would be a collaborative effort, and it would not be just a Zelda team. I think
Monolith Soft would definitely be involved.
Oh, yeah.
Monolith Soft could possibly. I think it could be a 3 or 4 team thing here. You know, like
Maybe
Monolith Soft.
Tantalus gets involved in some way. I know they've only done like lesser remasters, but even just the workforce, just doing something.
Right.
Maybe. Maybe it could be Grezzo.
I definitely don't want it to be led by then. Yeah,
It could
be
Grezzo is
Grezzo.
interesting. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you think it's for the 40th anniversary, right?
Most likely.
That feels almost too. I mean, Echoes of Wisdom just came out. Tears of the Kingdom 2023, but also that game was content complete in 2022, right?
Right. It's like we're talking about 2026 release.
I mean, it's possible Ocarina has been cooking since like 2021.
there have been Ocarina of
Yeah.
Time HD rumors for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
For years. I've actually been trying to get Game Over Jesse back on the channel because I don't know if you know who he is, but he's a Zelda creator, right? And he was someone who talked about how he had heard about Ocarina of Time HD a long time ago. He said something very interesting a few weeks ago during one of my live streams. He like was just visiting in the chat. I've been trying to get him on. Like we've been talking about it, but it hasn't happened yet. Like I want to pick his brain on this because I think he has some interesting and optimistic thoughts on what may be going on here. That's yeah. But I don't know what the team is.
Hmm.
I have to imagine it's a collaborative effort.
I do agree that the 3D Zelda team is partially working on this. I have a feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm being too ambitious, but I feel like if you're gonna remake a game that is this old, you basically are going to do it from the ground up, and you might as well actually do sort of like a reimagining of the game, where the actual like code of the game is built from the scratch. I wouldn't be surprised if the dungeons are changed up. I wouldn't be surprised if the way the combat mechanics themselves work and the controls and the way Link moves is changed. I think this is going to be like a modern version of Ocarina of Time. Not in every way. Obviously, this isn't going to be the same as like what they're wanting to do with next 3D Zelda, but I think this is going to be a much modern reimagining of Ocarina of Time. I don't think this is just going to be the same code with a lot better visuals.
Yeah, I think the other thing about this is like I'm trying to think of like a team that I'm like, oh, that would be the perfect team to do.
See, that's
this.
my thing. I hope it's not the 3D Zelda team because I want them getting on that new game as fast as possible. Though you might have a point with them like kind of testing new engines and stuff with the Switch 2. But other than, I mean, Grezzo, yeah, but way too soon if we're expecting it like next year or the year after for them.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
so the other thing I want to say on that is it actually, right? Because I think we sometimes look at things from the perspective of, oh, they just published that game. That means that's literally when they finished it. That's literally when they started
yeah, I mean, Echoes
development.
of Wisdom could have been done for a while.
I kind of think it has been.
But that's why that's because they're working on Tomodachi Life now. They did Miitopia. Now we're getting Tomodachi Life.
Maybe.
I know the chat would be
yeah.
hyped if
Listen,
if that was
So it's
true.
a bigger deal than Ocarina. Get ready.
And I'm not. Just to be clear, I'm not stuck on the idea of Grezzo being being
Yeah.
behind this, right? But I do think sometimes what I want to clarify though is that while I'm totally okay with it not being Grezzo, right? Like, that's fine, right? But I think some people kind of are under the impression that they wouldn't be able to pull this off because they look at Grezzo's recent efforts, right? Echoes of Wisdom, Link's Awakening, like, oh, they make 2D Zelda. But they also made Ocarina of Time 3D and Majora's Mask. And people might think, oh, those are 3DS games. Those aren't that impressive. They aren't now, but back then they absolutely were, right?
I mean, those are some of the best looking 3DS games.
Exactly. Right. So, like,
I agree.
what can Grezzo do with modern hardware on a 3D Zelda now?
Yeah.
They would be, I mean, those games are like, what, 14 years ago? The Ocarina of Time 3D came out 2011? Yeah, 2011.
Yeah.
Like, that was 14 years ago.
I believe it's either very similar or longer than the time between 3DS remakes
Oh,
and
it's
now
even
than the
longer.
time between
Don't say that to
N64
me,
and
that-
those 3DS
that
remakes.
hurts.
Ocarina of Time came out in 98. So
It's
2
longer,
years
yeah.
plus 11, 13 years.
Yes.
And now it's been 14 since then. It's been a total of 27 years. And by the time I think it comes out, which would be next year, would be 28. But
Maybe
Yeah.
we get a mix of EPD3, Grezzo, and Monolith Soft all working on it.
It's possible.
And maybe it
what's
was
for the
greenlit.
ZB3D?
That's the
EPD?
Zelda team. That's the
Okay,
Zelda
yeah.
team. So maybe maybe this was greenlit back during COVID or something. I mean, that'd be enough time. And that way, it's conceivable that the 3D Zelda team isn't putting like all their effort in it, and they
No.
are working on the next thing
Right.
mostly. But that way, they could, have a lot of input, I guess.
I mean, they had input on Echoes of Wisdom.
Right, of course.
Yeah. So I mean, exactly. I mean that if you think about it from that perspective, how it's a three-way effort, and they've actually been working on it for years at this point. I mean, quite frankly, I do think they have been working on it for years at this point, because my biggest points of evidence for it to be in existence go back to two different interviews that date back to 2023. And, you know, Onuma already knew.
Aonuma's not slick.
Right. Well,
No.
I mean, I don't think, I mean, I think it's by design, but, you know, that's up for debate. And so, you know, like, it's been a while, and it would be a remake, right? Not a whole on new game. So this wouldn't be like I don't think this would be like a 100-hour adventure. I think it'd be a 30 to 40-hour adventure. Like, maybe a little bit more if you really want to push it with side quests, but you know, like, I'm not expecting like as big of a game here. It's going to be sizable, right, compared to normal games. So, you know, I think what we're talking about is not really that crazy. But it is also a theory, so just so we're clear. I think sometimes people like to call it I mean, it is Ocarina of Time HD from years back is a rumor, but that's not the same as an Ocarina of Time remake for Switch 2.
Yeah.
Now, maybe one became the other, right? But there isn't like any like solid like reports on that, right? This is a theory that a lot of us believe, but it's still a theory. So...
Ocarina of Time remakes just something fans are like willing into existence at this point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fair.
And it will happen. It will happen eventually.
It will happen.
I am confident in that.
I mean, the fact, like, it is, like, that literally could be it, though. Like, the conversation around Ocarina of Time, Nintendo sees that, like, oh, well, you know, we do eventually have to remake a Zelda, so...
Thousand Year Door, dude. They remade that game because of fans. There's, like, that has to be the reason. So, like, Nintendo does listen.
Oh, for sure.
And Ocarina, I mean, I don't even know if they need to hear the conversation to know that people would want Ocarina anyway.
Yeah.
But
yeah. There are signs. Look at that Lego set with the Ocarina of Time Deku Tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Free Metroid Hat. Been a member for 14 months. Thank you for being a member all this time, Free Metroid Hat. And Boo Mini with a super chat. Thank you for the super chat, Boo Mini. How long do you think the April 2nd direct will be? This is a very interesting
That's a
question.
very good question.
I hope it's 7 hours long. I don't want it to ever.
Oh, yeah. It's gonna be like the Breath of the Wild E3, like.
Bro, that was the best E3 ever.
The 4-hour stream.
I was.
Yeah.
That's actually a great point.
They
Dude,
showed
might
that game for like 6 hours.
Wait,
a day.
They might do a treehouse after the direct. I didn't even consider this.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
never considered. They totally will.
Yeah.
Because press are going hands-on on April 2nd. I'm going to be playing on April 4th. You know, humble brag.
Lucky.
But
I'm still checking my email, praying that
But
I'm that delusional.
the idea of a treehouse right after the direct where they show some of the games off, honestly, I think that's pretty possible.
It'd be nice. I wish they would do more
I'd eat it up.
treehouse stuff. They
It
used to
wouldn't
do
be the
treehouse
first
a
time
lot.
they just announced like treehouse footage like right after, like,
No,
you know.
Yeah.
definitely not.
That'd be really cool.
Makes a lot
As
of
for the
sense.
direct itself, I mean,
It's gonna be at least 40 minutes, right?
yeah, 40 minutes is the minimum, or 40 minutes is the minimum. The Switch 2017 presentation was an hour, like exactly, I think.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm
That
thinking,
one's on a stage. There's a little more fluff.
yeah, a little bit more fluff. So like 50 minutes to an hour, I think,
Yeah.
for this. Depends on how much third-party stuff is there, honestly. If they want to show ports, then that boosts it 10 minutes. If it's only new stuff, then 40 to 50.
I think this is going to be. So the Switch 1 presentation was an hour, 6 minutes, and 11 seconds. I think this Switch 2 Direct is going to be a 50-minute Nintendo Direct.
On top of a potential 40-minute one this week. Dude,
Oof. Oof.
2 cakes, man. 2 cakes.
2 cakes. I think one's going to be a cupcake, but yes.
Hey, cupcakes?
I
Pretty
like
good.
cupcakes.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with
Cupcakes
that.
are pretty good, but still
Some
a
Metroid
cupcake.
Prime frosting on there. Little Wind Waker action. Tomodachi Life as the candle.
And it's a
Ooh.
pink batter, so it's Kirby.
And yeah, there you go.
Right.
Now I'm hungry. Thanks. Tony the Expert with another super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Don't underestimate new story content in Xenoblade Chronicles X. I probably shouldn't be. Yeah. I mean, the more I talk about it, the more like, oh, maybe I should just get into it now.
Yeah, I was surprised when the reviews came out. I think it was Gene Park from the Washington Post. Great account to follow if you like gaming stuff, but also Xenoblade. He's been posting a ton. I think he said it's like 20 to 30 hours, which is way bigger than I expected. Because I think we were talking about it before release, Andres. I was a little concerned because it didn't have like its own separate thing. Like Future Connected has its own save file, its own title.
Yeah.
I thought because Xenoblade X didn't have that, it might be a little like smaller. Doesn't sound like that's the case. Sounds like it's pretty meaty.
Yeah, I wasn't sure about that. I'm just curious if it does anything
I'm
to
sure it
kind
does,
of
dude.
answer
You know,
the
Monolith Soft.
cliffhanger, trying to get the connections. Like, yeah, like I am curious. Like, if it ends up just being extra stuff for the sake of extra stuff, I might be a little disappointed.
Dude,
I assume they have to at least fix the cliffhanger, because you adding new story content just being like the same cliffhangers before would be insane.
I mean, the interesting thing is if they do resolve the cliffhanger, that kind of tells me that they're just done with Xenoblade. Because like you could have argued Xenoblade X2. Like, listen, I don't think they're like done with Xenoblade, but I think it could help to even more like neatly wrap or tie a bow on this whole thing, or ribbon. Like it just really close it all. Because I think with Switch 2, they really want a fresh start. I think that ties into Legacy. So yeah, something else interesting. If there is no Metroid Prime 4 in the Switch 2 Direct, then something else has got to be there. Like
the core audience, new Monolith Soft game. There you go.
Right, exactly. I can't in my world. I want it all, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's possible. I don't know if I want Monolith Soft to be ready, and I think they are
Really
ready.
do.
But whether or not Nintendo decides to deploy them right now, that's the question.
Yeah,
That could be like a June Direct or even September Direct thing, maybe.
I mean, it might not
Don't
be
want to
that.
wait.
But I guess the point is that there's so many things that they could deploy, right? Like they're not going to shoot everything all in one shot. Like they're going to do things in waves, and that.
Well, they got two little spurts to come out with two directs.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, now getting to live chat. I feel like I haven't gotten to live chat enough tonight. The M52. I actually just came out here to pick up a cupcake.
Not the EDP reference, please.
No.
No, guys, just no.
I don't even. I'm not sure.
You're better off.
You don't want to know. You don't want
You're better
to
off
know.
not
You don't want to know.
A reference
really
to what?
bad.
So we're clear. Reference to what?
EDP. I forget the other two numbers. I'm not going to explain it. I'm just not. It's
Okay.
bad.
Okay.
Don't
All
Google
right.
it.
Okay.
Don't Google it.
I haven't heard that name in a while. That's crazy.
Ugh, I hate every time I have to hear that name.
I'm just gonna forget about it.
That's a good thing to do.
Rico Lee adds me. I did see Mike Odyssey mention something pretty interesting concerning Switch 2's coming up soon. Nintendo's filed a patent for remaking their games in HD 2D. Exciting if true. I mean, again, patent, and we'll have to see it. But I mean, like, what? Like, I guess it would be cool to see like Mother 3 in that style.
Ooh,
That would
I
probably be
guess.
like a really good game to do it in.
I guess my question would be: would this be for like a handful of games, or would it be more like the 3D classics on 3DS, where they do like a whole series of like NES games or SNES games in the style? Because like, if we got, maybe it's an NSO benefit or something, but like a slight remade version of like Super Metroid or Mario World or Link to the Past or Earthbound, like that'd be pretty cool. If that's what they're gonna do with it. I didn't look too much into this patent yet, but Pokemon, HD 2D Pokemon, please.
Heart Gold Soul Silver, which is already like that. It's already kind of like an HD 2D thing a little bit,
Dude,
right?
black
But
and white.
It's just not
my
HD.
Goodness.
Oh, black and white even more so. Yeah. Like I actually was thinking about it the other day. Like we're at a point where the Pokemon remakes need to be remade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we got Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which could be. I mean, it's another Kanto game, so Kanto's covered, I guess, or at least it was. I mean, even Kanto kind of feels like, yeah, we should get another Kanto game in a few years.
I mean, I feel like we should get another
Which is
Kanto game,
wild.
but I think we should get another Kanto game, but like Legends style. Or
that'd probably be next. But then, yeah, we need a Johto game. We definitely need a Unova game, and then from there we'll be talking about Hoenn again. I mean,
yeah, the cycle continues.
Yeah, it's an endless cycle of Pokemon remakes.
Yeah, I mean, if you utilize DLC, and actually, if there is something that is perhaps a very interesting takeaway from the Mega Evolution stuff, is that there is some conversation about there could be more added later, after release. And what's interesting about that is that if because this Legends game appears to not be getting like pushed out quickly like Legends Arceus was, and they want to just like immediately transition into marketing the next generation. There's actually they could do like a little bit of a DLC thing. Now I still assume Gen 10's coming out next holiday, so it's not like they can have it take place of the game in that same year, but they could have a quicker turnaround. And maybe it's just free updates. But
Yeah, I mean, Arceus had the Daybreak update. So
Yeah.
that was a free update, but maybe Legends EA comes out October, November. We get some sort of paid expansion in like March. And
like
then,
an engage kind of like turnaround, like
yeah,
a quick 4-month turnaround.
yeah. And then we see Gen 10 at the Pokemon Presents next year, and that comes out holiday, and then the cycle
Yeah.
continues again.
Yeah. So that would be interesting.
I just hope they announce something that I actually care about. Because
Never.
ZA is not looking interesting to me so far. Maybe that will change.
Well, there actually is some conversation about the nighttime gameplay.
Yeah, they haven't
'Cause
shown it.
Yeah, but apparently there's like there's been enough evidence to see that like the game does have a day and night cycle.
Okay. At this
so
point,
something's
if
going
I
on.
want to play Pokemon, I'm honestly looking at going back and playing Arceus because I did not play that, and that actually
Yeah.
looks interesting to me.
So good.
Nothing else Pokemon Company has put out the entire Switch generation has interested me other than that game.
It's the best one.
Yeah.
So far, so I've heard. I'm curious to try it. I've always wanted to get into Pokemon. They just haven't made games for me.
I mean, Legends Arceus, I think, is probably your best bet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't like Legends Arceus, I don't think you're gonna like a Pokemon game. To be quite frank,
Fair.
that's it. Like knowing you, like Legends Arceus. The question mark man asked me, "Hey Andres, since it's almost the end of March, have you received your Switch to Experience waitlist ticket yet? And when do you think the waitlist will end?" I think the waitlist ends when the experience events start or end, actually, because I mean, in theory, you could get one for a little bit later, I guess. But so if you were on the waitlist for New York, when the New York ones are done, is when your chance runs out. Although, you know, like if let's say like I get an email from Nintendo on April 1st or April 2nd to come April 3rd or 4th, like if there's like a 1 or 2 day turnaround, it's been kind of hard to buy a plane ticket, get a hotel, you know, in that span of time. I will consider it though.
I already got my hotel booked for next Friday. If you wanna, if you show up.
Hey, let me check my email real quick. Let me see.
Yeah,
I
anybody in
don't
chat,
see
if you're on the
anything
wait
from
list,
Nintendo.
make sure you're checking your emails because I saw someone post on Reddit. You actually have to confirm it. So like they'll send you the
Yeah.
waitlist offer,
Yeah,
and then you have like a
36
20. Yeah, you have 36 hours to
36
confirm it. Otherwise, it expires. I saw someone posting like, "Yeah, I didn't check my email and it expired."
Oh
That's
my
so
gosh,
devastating. That would hurt.
That
Oh,
would
yeah.
be pain.
The thing is, I don't check my email every 36 hours because this is like my third. Like I have 3 different emails, right?
Right.
Right.
And the one I get Nintendo emails from would be like this third one I barely use, right? I don't use this for
So you
business.
could just
or
have to
anything.
start checking that every day now.
Oh, I do check it with frequency, but there have been times where I've missed a 36-hour window. So like if I'm really unlucky and I get like, you know, like it was like a perfect amount of time that I missed, and they sent it like right after I checked. But I'm searching Nintendo events, right? I see the last email I got from them was on March 10th for Mario Day. Before that, it was about Pokemon DLC, which came out a long time ago, which just seems like a waste of time. Nintendo events January 29th, which is I think when I joined the wait list. So I haven't missed my opportunity. I just haven't gotten my opportunity. So I mean, there's this week still. You know, if it happens this week, I can maybe, you know, work some magic. So, but so far, no so good. Anyway, so we are wrapping things up, guys. So, if there's any final things you want us to discuss or point out, this is it. Last like 5 minutes, and we're out. Connor here adds me, happy 3rd anniversary to Kirby and the Forgotten Land, man. I love playing this game, and I managed to beat it 100%. So, what do you think? How Nintendo will do for the sequel? I love this question. Forgotten Land is one of my favorite Switch games. It is so good.
So
it is the
good.
best Kirby game.
Incredible. Best Kirby game.
It is. Yeah.
Better than 3D World, in my opinion. I would go that far. I think it's
I have
a really
100%
great game.
all the
Better than
stages.
Mario 3D World.
I think so.
I agree. I
It
feel
exceeded
it's
my
much
It's like-
better.
expectations more.
It's
so.
genuinely an incredible game. Like I was shocked when I played Forgotten Land. I was like, "What the hell? How Labyrinth Stories can
it-
do this?"
it
I
is-
didn't know. And
That-
that's like the
It
base
is,
now,
it is incredible.
and the sequel
Right.
just builds upon that, dude. That's one of my most anticipated games, honestly.
Yeah. No,
You know
that,
what-
that game,
what I
when I
think is
played it, I
actually-
was blown away by how good it was. I was not expecting to like it as much as I did. And it's the Kirby game I've played the most, because I've messed around with a few other ones. I played a little bit of Robobot on my friend's 3DS at one point, and then I played some of Triple Deluxe, like a third of that game, but then I kind of got bored of it. But, man, Forgotten Land just drew me in. It's so good. I 100%ed all the levels in that game. There's a little bit of extra content at the end that I haven't done.
Mhm.
So I'm like 99% of the way through.
100.
But it's practically 100%.
Yeah. I actually just realized, like, during this conversation right now, that Forgotten Land is actually probably a really good comp to Astrobot.
Huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
incredible, I would
Like,
say,
I would say Forgotten
Okay.
Land.
I
might
think I
be
actually
better.
mentioned it in my review of Astrobot. I talked about Forgotten Land, and like,
Yeah. Like it's arguably
The amount
more
of
similar
new
to Mario
concepts
Galaxy.
just in constantly being,
Just like camera angle
Introduced.
and platforming, like it's very similar. Like, yeah, Astrobot has a lot of Galaxy-like things. It doesn't feel quite the same ever, but there are, at least aesthetically, there's a lot. But like Forgotten Land, like I functionally very similar, I would say. Such a
Amazing
good game.
game.
So
Amazing
to answer the question, like, what do I think they'll do for a sequel? I think they'll just do more of the same, to be honest. And I don't mean that in any sort of negative way. Just like,
no. Man.
listen,
Give me
And
more.
that's
Kirby
gonna be a
does more
Switch
of the
2 game,
same.
you would assume. That's going to look insanely
right?
good.
Oh, totally. Like,
You
But what
imagine
I
that's
mean
next
is,
year
like-
also.
Ooh. It could. Definitely could come out next year.
could be. I think the Robot remaster might take. Like take
Well,
away
that's this
a
year.
little bit.
That's
Yeah,
the thing,
that's
that's
this
this year,
year.
and then next. We almost
Right.
get a Kirby game every
Yeah,
year.
yeah. I mean,
That's
they
the-
could-
that's
They
the
could
law
follow
of
used
the
to
drought.
rules
come out
after.
with way
But I mean,
more
I think-
Kirby games back at the 3DS era.
Yeah.
There was one like every couple months. It felt like.
I mean, even early Switch, the off year still had like eShop games like Fighters and Dream Buffet.
Yeah.
Love Kirby.
Yeah,
Ready for more Kirby.
me too. I'm ready for more 3D Kirby, to be honest with you. Well, I mean, a Robot remaster.
I'm
might
excited
sell
for
me, though, 'cause
Robobot.
Robot's a really good
So I
game.
did
Great game.
enjoy when I
Yeah.
played a few levels on my
Yeah.
friend's 3DS. It was really good.
Yeah, I think I like Return of
You want to
Dreamland
know
a
I'm even
little
more
bit
excited
more,
for?
but go ahead.
I'm excited for if GameCube NSO is truly coming, Kirby Air Ride.
Online, dude.
I never played it on game. I mean, I did
Never
play it
played
on
that.
GameCube, but I didn't own it, and it's not the same, right? And the thing is, Kirby Air Ride with online would change lives.
Yeah, a lot of
I
those
think that's
GameCube
actually
games,
the
man.
crazy
Melee,
thing about GameCube NSO, like game
Double Dash, F-Zero.
Double Dash,
Double Dash
Yeah.
Online
Soul
would get
Calibur
so,
2. I mentioned earlier,
Dude.
F-Zero GX. Like,
Double Dash Online and Melee Online would get like 30 million more subs to Switch Online. Like actually,
True.
it's such a that's a mega
Melee
push,
Online
right?
would be
Insane.
huge.
Yeah, as long as I get that netcode right.
Yeah.
Although I've never
facts.
really experienced any
I mean,
issues with the
like,
older games on there.
I have
no,
definitely
no,
experienced
but I
issues.
never even care to
with
play them
the older
online.
ones.
To be honest with you, like
It's fair.
I tried to play
I have
some
not used any
SNES
of them.
games online, and even with both of us plugged into Ethernet, it was not always the best experience. There was definitely noticeable lag.
Can you do random matchups?
No,
No, I don't think so.
that's something I would hope.
They
for
need
GameCube
to add
work
random
in.
matchups.
Yeah,
Yeah. I feel like with GameCube, multiplayer just makes a lot more. A lot of these games are really good for online multiplayer, or would be, and it would actually be very poetic because like one of the big issues with GameCube is it didn't really have a proper online setup. Oh, what was that game that GameCube did have online for? Was it like a Fantasy
Fantasy Star Online.
Star
Yeah.
online?
Really? How would you
Like,
even do
that was like the one,
online
like,
with
online
GameCube? Did you have to buy
game
another
game?
peripheral?
What do you mean?
There's some sort of modem you bought, I think.
There was a
Okay.
modem.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
if you remember the GameCube actually had several attachment ports in the bottom. Yeah.
I never used any of
Thank
them.
you, Super Quest Fantasy Star Online.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's also
I know-
that's where the big keyboard controller.
Well,
came
there
from.
wasn't
yeah.
much need to unless you had Phantasy Star Online.
Right.
Yeah. Where would the screen attach? You remember the screen? There was a screen.
Oh yeah.
I don't know where the screen would attach. Yeah. Anyway, GameCube NSO would be really cool because a lot of games all of a sudden would
Yeah.
people would play them online, but they would have to have random matchups. Yeah. Let me check the chat here. Regalese here says, Forgotten Lands essentially if Mario 3D World had actual lore and Wonder's creativity. It's no wonder so many prefer it to 3D World. Forgotten Lands feels like a console game. 3D World doesn't.
True.
Like,
Based.
I don't want to like poo-poo 3D World that badly, but I don't think you're that wrong either. Like,
I mean, 3D World is based on 3D
I like
Land,
3D World.
so it inherently kind of feels like more of like a smaller scale game. I love 3D World.
It did feel like an HD 3DS game.
Yeah. The levels definitely aren't
That's
as
fair.
good as the levels in Forgotten Land. There's so much more creativity and new mechanics happening constantly in Forgotten Land that it's kind of almost unfair to 3D World just how good Forgotten Land is. Because 3D World is definitely an amazing game.
Put Mario in a cat.
It was not the game I
Like,
wanted as the main
hear me out.
3D Mario for that generation, I'll
out.
tell you that. But neither was
on
Galaxy.
the Wii U.
To be honest, Galaxy wasn't for me either.
No,
I wanted the
it's very
sandbox 3D
different.
Mario.
It's very. This is. I get what you're saying, but also I understand, but it's still very different. Okay, hear me out here. When we saw Mario Galaxy for the first time, we were like, "Holy crap, that looks amazing!" Were we not?
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
That's true.
When we saw 3D World for the
And
first
I love
time,
Galaxy,
we were
by the way.
starved. The Wii U had a terrible start. We were
see
waiting
that
for like
catsuit.
that epic Nintendo adventure in HD, and we see Mario in a catsuit. Like, yes, it was cute. Yes, it was fun, but it wasn't. Holy cow! This is that epic adventure I've been waiting years for to finally see on an HD Nintendo console. We didn't get
It
that
felt
till
too
2017.
level, like generic level based in a way. It's like the levels don't have their own identity to them,
Sure.
whereas Galaxy definitely did, and Forgotten Land definitely does.
Kick It Smooth in chat said, y'all sleeping on 3D World so hard, you must be forgetting the soundtrack. Here's the
Yeah.
thing. I
Soundtrack
love
is
3D
amazing.
The soundtrack's amazing. I love 3D World, especially on Switch
Same.
when they increase the movement speed and everything.
Oh,
That's
so much better.
that it's just a testament to how good Forgotten Land actually is.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's unfair how good Forgotten Land is.
Listen, if I have a top 10 Switch games, Forgotten Land is in it. 3D World is not.
I mean,
But
For-
I do
Forgotten
like
Land might be in my
Bowser's
top
Fury. I mean,
5.
first off, I 100% to 3D. I listen. Forgotten Land is not in the bottom of my 10. Just so we're clear. So
I enjoyed
maybe
Mario
for me as
Wonder
well.
more
I'm
than
not sure.
3D World.
It might
to
be like
honest.
a 6 or 7 for me.
I had a much better time with Mario
Get
Wonder.
out. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I
Mario Wonder
actually-
also is better.
Mario Wonder's fun.
Yeah, there's a few levels towards the end I didn't get to, but every
I
level
like
did
3D
play,
World.
I was 100%.
I really do.
As I was going.
But it was
You sound like haters. 3D World's like an 8 to a 9 out of 10, and we're
Oh,
like
it's so good.
hating on it.
3D World was just not the game. What I'm trying to say is that 3D World was simply, it wasn't the game that we needed at the time. 3D World would have
I
been a
agree with
great second 3D Mario game, if that makes
yeah.
any sense.
Which it was
right?
on
Like,
Switch.
We
which is
needed
Yeah.
like
hit.
basically Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was great. It was great. Yeah, it was lovely. Especially with Bowser's Fury, like Bowser. I bought 3D World plus Bowser's
I have
Fury
not
solely
played
for
Bowser's Fury, but
and
I
then
really
actually
want to.
I've been wanting to play through 3D World recently, but for some reason I cannot find my case. I think I let someone borrow it, and they never get back to me, and I do not remember who it is, and they do not remember. Like I've asked people, and that like no one, I have no idea where this game went. I'm so upset about it, but yeah. Anyway, I saw this question earlier, never got to it. Kick It Smooth asked me, do you think Mario Maker 3 could be at the Switch 2 Direct? It would be a good MouseCon showcase. You know, my first thought is Mario Maker 3, Switch 2 Direct. Nah. But
Next year.
that MouseCon is actually something that would work really well for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. It doesn't feel like something you have in the Switch 2 Direct but it does feel like a game you should definitely have for the Switch 2 early on because it does make so much sense with Mario Maker.
I
Like it
think-
just those mouse controls, yeah.
It's a
I think
no-brainer. Like before the MouseCon stuff happened, I didn't even think we were going to get Mario Maker 3. But then after I saw it, I was like, oh, this makes so much sense.
Yeah.
They're going to do Mario Maker 3 with it. I think next year, though.
And they should also
Yeah.
It a little bit
do
more
Mario Paint.
I think they definitely need to change up the game a lot more. I think the second one really showed them that they can't just do the first game with
More
honestly features that should have been in the first game,
Yeah.
and then be
Yeah.
like, "This is a whole new game, guys. Why don't you want this? This isn't exploding on Twitch like before. I don't understand." They
Need more
need to
themes.
add some more stuff. Yeah, more
Yeah.
themes would have been big. People always thought they were going to add Galaxy to 2, and then they just did not do that. So I
Yeah.
think they need to add a lot more different content that varies it up and differentiates it from 1 and 2 because they're basically the same game, but better, slightly better. I think
Yeah.
they need to make it its own identity, which I think is, maybe they have that already, but I feel like I agree with Bo. It's gonna be at least a year before we see that game.
For me, what would be really great for Mario Maker 3 if it actually does do like a 3D land, 3D world sort of like thing, where it's not just 2D Mario but also 3D Mario, but cookie cutter, simple 3D Mario.
Right.
I mean, you could
2D
argue
3D
Game Builder
Mario.
Garage is kind of like that, but Game Builder Garage is a lot more sophisticated.
Yeah.
It is cool though. It's Game Builder Garage is very fun. It's only $20 too. The Emma52 says, "Dang, I might have to pick up Forgotten Land then." It is a very good. It is definitely a top 10 first party Nintendo title on Switch. And to Bo's point, you could make an argument for top 5. I mean, all right.
I
don't
map
want
it out. It's a little hard because there's 2 Xenoblade games are in my top 5. Zelda's got Mario Wonder in there, so maybe it's like number 6 on my list, but it's
Okay.
close.
You know what?
It's
The
really
more I
close.
think about it, maybe I don't.
Instead of trying to say what my top 5 or 10 is, I'm gonna give a hot take. Tears of the Kingdom is not in it.
As a hot take.
I'm kicking you.
It's
out.
not in my top 5 or 10. It may not
Why are
even
you
be in my
still
top
here,
20.
Mike?
I'm not
Why are you-
sure.
All right, you need to go.
Top might not even be in my
You're
top
gonna
100.
get out of here.
I
Okay.
hate Tears of the
Get
Kingdom.
out.
I don't
Get out.
hate Tears of the Kingdom. I just think it's one of the most disappointing games that has come out in my lifetime. For me personally.
So sad.
But I also think I was a little bit too excited for what they were going to do with that.
No, I mean, quite frankly, I think Nintendo. I mean, the Zelda team definitely had a lot to measure up to, but they also had plenty of time to do it, and they had a
Yeah.
hell of a foundation to do it with. So,
Yeah.
I think
Amazing game, but not even close to what I thought it was going to be.
I kind of feel like the criticism is valid, but also I'm like, it's not. It's nothing. It's fine. It's a good game. So it's a very good game.
It is.
Uh,
I put
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild in there, not Tears of the Kingdom, because I don't want two of the same very similar games. And Tears of the Kingdom was so disappointing to me, whereas Breath of the Wild was the exact opposite.
all right.
It's one of the most hyped games ever.
I'm gonna move on from this just because this could be its own podcast.
Oh, for
Let's-
sure.
let's-
That's
let's-
why I
let's-
didn't want to try to do it
I
top
am
10.
I'm moving
Reel it
on. Reeling it in. I mean, we could do a whole 3 to 4 hour cast on just ranking our top 10 Switch games, which would be fun. And maybe we'll do that once we kind of know when Switch 2 is coming out. That could be kind of maybe like a
Yeah.
good in between like
Be fun.
topic while we wait for Switch 2's launch. But not tonight. So I got another super chat here. From Free Metroid Hat. Thank you, Free Metroid Hat. Phantasy Star Online had that weird keyboard game controller for it, right?
Yeah.
Seems very. I didn't know about that, but that makes.
Have
sense.
you never seen that? Look up GameCube keyboard controller. It's so funny.
Maybe I have seen it and I just don't remember.
It's just
Game
an entire
board.
keyboard. It's just
Oh.
yeah, it's just
I'm
the
on
GameCube
Google.
controller with an entire
wow.
keyboard in the middle of it. It's
wow,
awesome.
that is hilarious. Let me show everyone.
I want this. It's pretty expensive, I think, on like eBay.
Oh my god.
Can't imagine that many were
This
made.
actually
No.
is a page listing, pre-owned. Hold on. $290.
There it is.
That is.
Oh yeah,
that's-
so
I have
cool.
seen this actually.
It's so stupid. I
It
love
looks fake. It's crazy.
Oh, it's real. It's real. Look,
thing required 2
I know.
ports.
98%
Look,
positive.
Oh
Huh?
yeah.
2 controller cord ports.
Wow.
Yeah, you're right.
I
Oh,
wonder how
that's
heavy it is.
wild. Oh, bro, that's a chonker for
No,
sure.
no wonder Nintendo thought the Wii U gamepad was a good idea,
Yeah.
because that thing was
Practically a
huge.
slim design in comparison.
Yeah,
Man.
crazy. Very cool stuff.
Alma in the chat says they still have theirs. That's wild.
That's awesome. Hope it works. All right, I think there was like one more thing I wanted to get to, and I was going to call it. All right, listen. I don't want the end of this show to be considered a 3D World slander like segment. 3D World is a very good game. It is one of the best Wii U games. It is a probably one of the best Wii U ports we ever got. Like the fact that they did so much for the enhancement, they sped up the gameplay, the quality of life improvements, the Bowser's Fury. I think they even improved the resolution. Like the game was enhanced quite a bit. It was already a fantastic game. The only thing I was trying to say about 3D World, it's like it is a objectively great game. I do agree. I basically have two criticisms on the game. Three, right? Everything else about the game is amazing. Like the visuals are wonderful. There's so many fun platforming things. There's a lot of secrets to unlock. The game is fun. There's personality, great music. It's super polished. Like all of that is there. My three criticisms are this. One, the multiplayer, not great for me personally. People like it, I enjoy it more as a single player game. Like the multiplayer, people are just getting in my way. It takes away from the platforming experience personally. Two, I do feel like not all of it, but there are a lot of the like environments feel cookie cutter. It doesn't feel like super inspired and original. Still looks great, but that there is that element. And then three, it's not even necessarily like a critique of the game itself, but just the timing of it. I think it was the wrong Mario game to put out. It wasn't the game was gonna sell the Wii U. Like putting Mario in a cute cat suit, that's not how you put your killer app to launch your new HD console. Like this is the first Nintendo HD console. We waited years to get to this point, and what they gave us was Mario in a cat suit. It wasn't a good idea. Not to sell consoles, at least. Was it a good game? Was it a fun costume? Yes, loved it. It was really fun climbing around, slashing things. If it was the second 3D Mario of the Wii U era, it would have been a better fit. Otherwise, fantastic game. I love going back to it. I need to find my cartridge. Yeah. So, I guess we can wrap it up with that. Yeah. Anyways, guys, make sure to check out Josie Woe. She had to leave out early due to technical issues, but her channel is linked in the description below. Make sure to check out Bo Talks Games. His channel is also linked in the description below. Any final thoughts, guys?
Excited for this week. Maybe tomorrow morning we find out what's going on. If not, Thursday morning, something will happen.
If not, who cares?
And if not, who cares? Because next Wednesday, switch to Direct.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll be going hands-on Friday. So
forward to
definitely
that.
subscribe to me for hands-on impressions.
Yes.
Yes.
And yeah, gonna be a fun week.
Absolutely. We are in for a wonderful, wonderful time.
Oh yeah.
Less than 8 days remain.
Oh, so close. And it's just crazy to me how quick it's gone by, to be honest. And maybe not everybody feels the same, but I feel like I've had a couple of sleeps since the reveal, and now it's already almost the presentation. And I was worried it was going to take forever because it was like nearly 3 months in between those two, but it's already 8 days, and I feel like it's been maybe a week.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I didn't post that many videos in February because there wasn't much to talk about. So most of February just kind of flew by, and then most of March has flown by. I thought it was going to be a slow crawl, but that might be what we're looking at this week. However, if there's a Switch 1 Direct, that really helps speed things up. It's like, okay, this one I look forward to.
The Switch 1 Direct, like, I don't even know if there's enough days in between to...
I swear I'm going to blink after that Switch 1 Direct, and then the Switch 2 Direct is going to be starting. I'm like, oh god.
Personally, I kind of hope there isn't a Direct announced tomorrow. I hope it's just shadow dropped on Thursday, just so I can kind of cover the stuff that has happened tomorrow, because I haven't covered it yet. So we'll see. But anyways, that's all for now, everyone. Have a good one. We'll see you all soon. Take care.
See you guys.
Sweet.